Testing podium mic. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Joaquin Esquivel, Chair of the State Water Resources Control Board. Today is Tuesday. It is June 17th. It is 9:02 a.m., and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'll begin by introducing my fellow board colleagues. Joining us virtually this morning is Vice Chair Doreen Diadamo. Here in person, we have Board Member Laurel Firestone and Board Member Nicole Morgan. We're also joined by our executive staff, our Executive Director, Eric Oppenheimer, our two Chief Deputies, Karen Mogus and Eric Ekdahl, our Chief Counsel, Michael Loffer. Our Clerk of the Board is Courtney Tyler, and assisting her this morning is Margie Argel and Biba Malitic. As you can see, this is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and web components. If you're joining us virtually, you should be viewing us through our traditional webcast on the Cali PA website or the YouTube live site. But if you intend on commenting on any of today's items, you need to be on the Zoom platform. There's a link at the top of the agenda and instructions on how to get onto the platform. But if you are having any difficulties doing so, please do just email the clerk of the board at board.clerk@waterboards.ca.gov, and she can help get you onto the platform. Once you are on the platform, your camera will be off. You will be on mute until it's your turn to speak on the item you've indicated. For everyone in the room here, good morning. Good to see everyone. We're here in Sacramento in the California Environmental Protection Agency building. A few quick announcements for us here as well. Please do observe the exits. If we happen to have an emergency, we'll calmly file out to Cesar Chavez Plaza and await further direction. If you intend on commenting on any of today's items, you need to sign up, and there is a QR code at the side of the room or a laptop. If you have any challenges, though, please do just speak to the clerk of the board, and we can help get you signed up. Once you are at the microphone, please do introduce yourself and any affiliation if you so wish. And lastly, please do silence any phones just so that we can have an uninterrupted discussion this morning. With that, we can move on, as we traditionally and customarily do, to public forum. I believe we have one public forum commenter this morning, Mr. Ray Tahir. I'm not sure if Mr. Tahir is on the platform, but look to my Zoom closed, so apologies. Okay, Mr. Tahir. Mr. Tahir, we've provided you an opportunity to come off of mute. Not sure if you're able to. I see you are off mute at this point, but we can't hear you. So if you are speaking, Mr. Tahir, it may be that you have the wrong microphone selected. If you're able, at the bottom of the screen, next to the mute button, there's a little up arrow. If you click on that, you should be able to change your input and see if that helps you out, but we currently can't hear you.
I did.
All right, I believe we can hear you now, Mr. Tahir.
Can you hear me now?
We can, thank you. Or at least we could. If you are still speaking, Mr. Tahir, apologies, but we cannot hear you now.
In and out for some reason.
Okay, we can, and we can see you.
Okay, now. Yeah, great. Okay, good morning, everyone. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Raising ex parte communication with this board is getting old. This will be about the 5th time I've raised the fact that the legislature does not prohibit ex parte communication, contrary to what Mr. Offer has declared. All I got in response were evasions, defensiveness, sophistry, and lawyer tricks. My position has been that ex parte communication is permitted as long as the communication is disclosed to other board members. This is made clear in Senate Bill 965, as reflected in Protocol in Section 13287. This is an issue because local electeds and I were prohibited from commenting on the proposed 2021 LA Regional MS4 permit. Mr. Lawfer was bent on preventing members of the public from influencing board members. However, this is exactly what SB 965 was intended to permit, which he knows and each of you should know. Sorry. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. According to Senator Wright, the current rules in place, and this is pre-SB 965, at the state board severely restrict participation by affected stakeholders in the state board permitting process and prohibit communication with members of the state board once a draft permit or other notice of proposed action has been prepared and released by staff of the water board. Instead, local governments, businesses, and other stakeholders are often limited to just a few minutes of testimony before the board during a formal hearing, despite the profound impact board decisions can have on these regulated entities. Next slide, please. This resulted in Government Code Section 111257, which says the state body shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the state body on each agenda item before or during the state body's discussion or consideration of the item. Further, Government Code 11430.10 says while the proceeding is pending, there should be no communication, direct or indirect, regarding any issue in the proceeding to the presiding officer from an employee or representative of the agency that is party or from an interested person outside the agency. And this is key here, without notice and opportunity for all to participate in the communication. Disclosure, in other words. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, Regional Board Vice Chair David Nahai complied with the disclosure requirement by revealing to the board the following. On January 30th, I had a Zoom call with BizFed representatives who wanted to speak to me about the upcoming CII permit, a pending MPDS permit. We had a conversation, I think, for about 40 minutes. I reported on that conversation to staff with a request that staff reach back out to BizFed reps for additional dialogue. So I just wanted to put that on the record. FYI, the CII permit is a pending MPDS permit and therefore a quasi-adjudicated matter subject to ex parte communication. Applied here is 13287. So there you go, evidence that the legislature does not prohibit ex parte communication. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And if that don't beat all, check this out. And this is from the State Board's website under ex parte disclosure requirements for pending general orders. The prohibition against ex parte communication no longer applies to general waste discharge requirements, including MPDS permits. This is very important. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So why is this important? By March 2026, the LA and Ventura MS4 permittees must submit a report of waste discharge to renew their MS4 MPDS permit. According to Mr. Lawfer's 2013 ex parte Q&A, the submittal of a ROWD marks the time when the application, with the prohibition rather, on ex parte communication begins, because it is an application for an agency decision. So anytime after March 2026, communication from the public to the regional board regarding the ROWD will be prohibited. However, based on the foregoing, we know that this is not true. Such communication is not prohibited. And even if it were an ROWD, and this is really, really important, is an application for an MPDS permit, which requires a decision, not from agency staff, as Mr. Lawfer believes, because it does not have decision-making authority. That distinction belongs to the governing regional board, as made clear in Protocol in Section 13223 delegation, which says, each regional board may delegate any of its powers and duties vested in it by this division to its executive officer except waste discharge requirement. Mr. Lofgren knows full well that a waste discharge requirement includes MPDS permits. Next slide, and I think this is the last one. Okay, so now what? Mr. Lofgren's dated and incorrect Q&A needs to be revised. Other information that needs correction is referenced to impending matters, which is not defined anywhere and was conjured up by Office Chief Counsel staff. This misinterpretation of SB 965, Protocol Section 13287, and APA 4.5, and a clear definition of general orders. And I would be more than happy to assist Mr. Lofgren in this regard. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for bothering this.
Thank you, Mr. Tahir. I believe we continue to have fundamental disagreements here between your read of the law and our own. Mr. Loffer, I don't know if you wanted to make any further comment.
Sure. Thank you. This is Michael Loffer, Chief Counsel for the board. First of all, Courtney, if you could go back to slide 4. One of the challenges we have is that I agree with Mr. Tahir, this is getting a little bit old. What is he characterizes as being lawyerly or sophistry is simply repeating back to him the code and the context in which it appears. And I think it's very important to keep in mind one thing. Mr. Tahir is arguing that the disclosure model for ex parte communications, prohibited ex parte communications, is the model that the legislature wants. However, if that were true, it would not have been necessary for Senate Bill 965 to be passed, and because it would have already been a disclosure model. And Senate Bill 965 applies in a very narrow context that has been reiterated to Mr. Tahir time and time again. For example, actually, let's go forward if we can. Argel, can we go forward one slide? One more slide. One of the things that Senate Bill 965 limited the ex parte and created a disclosure model in an instance where a water board, regional or state, is issuing waste discharge requirements, water quality certifications that do not name the parties involved. That matters. That is where you will have a disclosure model. And the example he's giving right here, which has been reiterated to him time and time again in letters, is not subject to the broader APA prohibitions on ex parte communications. Instead, it is subject to the newer disclosure requirements under SB 965 because the CII permit does not name individual dischargers. It allows parties to enroll under it. Words matter. Now, if we can go back to slide 4, please. I don't quite understand the reference to 11125.7 here because that section was not changed. This is part of the Bagley-Keene Act, so it was not the result of Senate Bill 965. That is true. People have an opportunity to participate in public notice meetings and provide comments during those meetings. The APA provides a more explicit prohibition, which is set forth in the section that Mr. Tahir has provided here, 11430.10. I say words matter. Look at the highlighted blue text he has provided. Without notice and opportunity for all parties to participate in the communication. Disclosure is not participating in the communication. This section is the prohibition that Ledge Council, Senate Bill 965, and the Water Codes Q&A repeatedly reiterates, makes communications, ex parte communications, prohibited in most adjudicative matters. We can go forward one slide now. Oops, one more slide. Words matter. Blue highlighted text. Prohibition against ex parte communications no longer applies to general waste discharge requirements. The MS4 permits that Mr. Tahir is referring to are not general waste discharge requirements. Senate Bill 965 requires that in order to use its disclosure model, that the order does not identify the parties. Those tend to be general waste discharge requirements because they don't identify the parties, parties enroll under them. The MS4 permit that Mr. Tahir is referring to identifies all the parties covered for it. Words matter. Mr. Tahir keeps coming back to you and reiterating that the ex parte communication provisions do not require a prohibition, but they instead are a disclosure. But that is simply not true under the general APA. The legislature created a special rule under Senate Bill 965 that's codified in Water Code Section 13287. It applies to a narrow circumstance, words matter. When those circumstances apply, there is a disclosure model that is used by the slide. I do not believe that there is any need to update the ex parte Q&A. I'm happy to meet with Mr. Tahir. I've offered him multiple opportunities to meet, and he keeps coming back in public forum. And frankly, I agree it is getting old. So that's all I have for today.
Really appreciate that, Mr.
One of the
Lawfer.
things I don't like about this, process.
Mr. Tahir, I appreciate your comments here in public forum. I do recommend that you reach out to Mr. Lawfer and you meet with him and you can have an in-depth
Well, I'm not gonna
back
do
and
that.
forth.
I'm not
Okay.
gonna-
Well, I appreciate that,
You
Mr.
know,
Tahir. Mr. Tahir, thank
I
you
don't play the
and
game,
appreciate
okay,
your
so
comments this morning.
I'm not gonna fall into that.
Okay. Vice Chair, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would just suggest or refer Mr. Tahir to the legislative history for SB 965. I do remember when it was being debated, and everything that Mr. Lawfer just walked us through is what I recall, and hopefully there's some good legislative history. And also, Mr. Tahir, if you're interested in having a law changed, I would just suggest contacting your legislative representatives. Not that I wouldn't necessarily encourage that, but we need to follow the law, and it's very clearly established as to what those provisions are as far as we're concerned. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. And again, thank you, Mr. Tahir. And I do encourage you to meet with Mr. Lawfer so that you can you can come to a better understanding here. So thank you. That was our only public forum commenter, though I just want to note, Tom Enslow, I do see you on the platform. I see you indicated you wanted to speak on the board meeting minutes. Want to make sure that it's not actually perhaps public forum that you wish to speak on or item number 4. So we'll give you a quick moment to unmute and just to confirm that you'll want to speak on the board meeting minutes here and not public forum.
Thank you. Yeah, no, if I speak, it'll be on item number 4 in the agenda, but
Great.
only if necessary. If
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Enslow. Thank you for the clarification. All right, that wraps up public forum and now brings us to our first item of board business, which is consideration of the board meeting minutes from the June 3rd board meeting. Looking to my fellow board colleagues if they have any amendments or adjustments, and then otherwise, I believe we're ready for a motion on it.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Board Member Morgan,
Aye.
Board Member Firestone,
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo,
Aye.
and Chair Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. Board meeting minutes are adopted. That brings us to a tranche of what were uncontested items 2, 3, and 4. I will pull out item number 4 because I do believe we have a couple of commenters. And so I really appreciate the good work that staff have done on items number 2 and 3. But if there isn't any discussion or need to pull those off, we can take them up as an uncontested block.
I'll make a motion for items 2 and 3.
Second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Board Member Morgan,
Aye.
Board Member Firestone,
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo,
Aye.
and Chair Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And thank you again for everyone's good work on those 2 items. Item number 4 is consideration of a proposed resolution adopting amendments to the cross-connection control policy handbook. Like to invite folks up. We can maybe do just a quick overview and then be able to hear some comments from folks. Good morning. Good to see you all.
Thank you very much. My name is Zach Rounds. With me, I have Lorene Tan and Nick McGann from the Division of Drinking Water. We're going to do a quick presentation on the proposed changes for the Cross Connection Control Policy Handbook. Next slide, please. So I'm starting off. Recent changes to the handbook were back in March 2025. We made very minor modifications to change the usage of the word adoption to effective date. It's because back when we originally wrote the cross-connection handbook, we had intended that it would go live at the time of adoption. When it was adopted, we pushed the effective date back out to July 1st, 2024. So we made some minor corrections through the process granted to us by the board with our deputy director approving the changes. That was back in March. Next slide, please.
So the Division of Drinking Water Cross-Connection Committee is proposing a couple of changes to the handbook. The proposed changes, is it previous slide? Go back a slide. There, that's a slide. Okay. So the proposed changes we have for the handbook are: one, for non-community systems, extend the initial hazard assessment deadline to July 1st, 2027. This is due in part to the difficulties of water systems in locating certified specialists. Two, postpone the requirement for certifications of testers and specialists to July 1st, 2026. This allows more time for individuals to obtain certifications with a state-recognized certification organization. Three, for hazard reassessment triggers, correct the list language connecting word from and to or between items 6 and 7. Next slide. Four, align or match the language pertaining to testers and special certifying organization. Stop. Okay, that's the correct slide. 5, align or match language for air gap distances with the California Plumbing Code. And 6, align or match the language for RP assemblies with the California Plumbing Code. This involves changing the wording for public water system alternatives to apply only for the maximum height. Next slide.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. So I'll cover the public comments we received for the proposed changes. We held a public comment period from April 25th to May 8th, which concluded with a public hearing held on May 8th via public Teams meeting. In total, we received 11 public comments, with all commenters being in support of the deadline extensions. Only one comment we received was opposed to any of the proposed changes, but that was regarding the installation requirements of a backflow prevention assembly. But the changes we're proposing aligns the CCPH with the language that's in the California Plumbing Code. Most of the comments received, both written and during the public hearing, were out of the scope of the current proposed changes. Many of the comments requested changes to the backflow protection requirements for fire sprinkler systems. There were a few requests for changes to the requirements for auxiliary water sources, and there were some other requests for minor modifications, editing, or clarifications in various parts of the handbook. Although out of the scope for these proposals, we did record and file all the comments, and we'll take them into consideration in the near future. Next slide, please. So the next two slides will cover what the next steps are for the handbook. Related to the out-of-scope comments we received, we plan to hold a board workshop to solicit public input on some of those potential changes. The workshop will cover the main topics for which we continue to receive comments or requests for changes to language of or alternatives to protection for fire sprinkler systems. Similarly, a change to language or alternative means of protection for premises with auxiliary water supplies, chiefly residential connections with private wells. And lastly, the use of ANSI equivalent organizations that CCPH certifying organizations may use to comply with the ISO 17024 requirement. While we don't have a date or additional details at the moment for the workshop, we're aiming to complete that later this year in the autumn. Next slide, please. Lastly, we are nearly complete with a guidance document on the protection required for fire sprinkler systems. The guidance will provide some background information on fire sprinklers, potential sanitary concerns for fire sprinklers, clarifications on the requirements in the handbook as they relate to fire sprinkler systems, some potential compliance methods for both existing and new installations of fire sprinklers, tips for water systems to assess the presence of hazards, and references to existing industry guidance that has additional information on assessing fire sprinklers. We're aiming to release the guidance document by the end of this month on the public CCPH webpage. Next slide, please. Lastly, additional background, existing guidance documents and future guidance documents and templates are available on the Water Board's CCPH webpage. Can be found on the link on this page or by using the search engine of choice, searching for California CCPH. Questions specific to water systems, document submission or specific requests should be sent to DDW district offices responsible for the particular water system. But other questions may be sent to the Cross Connection Control Committee email, which is backflow@waterboards.ca.gov. And with that, our presentation is complete.
Thank you. Much appreciation. Thanks for the work on updating the manual as well. We have a couple of commenters looking to see if board members have any comments. And if not, we can go first to Megan Murphy, be followed by Tom Enslow. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Good morning, members of the board. I'm Megan Murphy, representing the California Municipal Utilities Association. CMUA represents 75% of water providers throughout the state of California. And we thank you for making the latest revisions to the Cross Connection Control Policy Handbook. CMUA supports the proposed changes intended to be adopted today, but would like to take this opportunity during the public comment period on the handbook to highlight to the board that there are other more significant changes that are that warrant consideration. From what I understand, the handbook is currently being revised only when the Division of Drinking Water staff have spare time, so we respectfully request that the board allocate the necessary resources and staffing to revisit sections of the handbook that require clarification and amendments for public water utilities to successfully implement. We've outlined these issues in a written comment letter submitted June 10th, and we asked staff to review our written comments and plan for future updates. We believe that the adjustments we propose would maintain an equivalent level of public health protection while improving clarity, efficiency, or feasibility of implementation. So I'm here today to ask the State Water Board to allocate the support and resources needed to further improve the handbook outside of the edits being considered today for adoption so it can be effectively implemented. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Much appreciated for those comments, Ms. Murphy, and for the engagement on the update to the manual. Next, I'd like to call up Tom Enslow.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Tom Enslow on behalf of the California State Pipe Trades Council. First, we support these amendments, particularly the proposal to extend by a year some of the deadlines. One issue, that we have that we don't want to get lost with this extension is there are 3 cross-connection and backflow protection certification bodies that certify testers: AWWA, ABPA, and ASSE. ASSE is the certification that the pipe trades unions apprentice halls teach to their members, but we've long faced discrimination against the ASSE certification, which we believe has, is not unrelated to the fact it is the union certification of choice. Right now, AWWA is the only certification body that is listed on the board website as state certified. The way that the current regulations require is that you either have to be you either have to have ANSI certification, or you have to submit a application that shows that you meet certain standards. ASSE submitted that application in February of 2024. That was over a year and a half ago, and only like about a month ago did they finally get a response to this. We want to make sure is that review and approval of that application doesn't get delayed until the next deadline, because continues to be a problem with AWWA being the only state certified certification when ASSE should also have been certified over a year ago. So we just urge staff to expedite that application approval and not use the extension as an excuse to delay it further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Enslow. I appreciate that point. Just thanks. I'm looking to staff to see if they have a timeline perhaps on the approval or at least processing of that application and its sort of timing with when folks might be able to access it.
With regards, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, for the ASSE's tester certification program, we're expecting recognition through our process imminent this week.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Rounds. And again, appreciate that, Mr. Enslow. And when it comes to the scope of any future updates to the cross-connection control handbook, when I know we had flagged we'll be doing a potential workshop here in the fall, but when might it become clear, what the scope, I guess, of the next update of the handbook is, or we're still kind of in an assessment mode?
We worked with an external work group or committee made up of a lot of the AWWA, ASSE, ABPA, all of membership. I believe they're all part of that. We will bring some of our proposed changes to them for further development. And then at the workshop, I suspect we'll be treating it, we'll be looking for refinement, I think, of our proposed changes. We do have ideas right now of what we're likely going to propose, but we definitely don't want to make any. These will be bigger changes, and we don't want to make any of these changes without a lot of input from the regulated community.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Really appreciate the process there, and here letting folks know again. Although we're adopting some changes here, there sounds like there's a lot of desire from folks to see something more comprehensive. It is, a time of limited resources right now, so we're always trying to prioritize across things. So appreciate the request that we try to prioritize this work a bit. I think amongst it, we'll just continue to try to balance it and move it along, though, in a way that hopefully folks feel is appropriate. So thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Rounds. Looking to see if there's any questions or comment from fellow board colleagues. And if not, I think we may be prepared for a motion.
I'll make a motion for item 4.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call roll call vote?
Board Member Morgan,
Aye.
Board Member Firestone,
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo,
Aye.
Chair Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. Really appreciate again the work on this. The resolution is adopted and look forward to, I know there'll be further discussion on other changes to the cross-connection control handbook. Thank you. Much appreciated. All right, that now brings us to item number 5, which is an informational item on the 2025 report of the Statewide Advisory Committee on Cooling Water Intake Structures, also known as SACWIS. Now, this item will include discussion of the 2025 meeting of the SACWIS and the committee's findings. We will have a presentation by staff, State Water Board staff and members of SACWIS, followed by a presentation from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and then public comments. Mr. Dolan, an environmental scientist at the State Water Board, and Ms. Gutierrez and Ms. Tesfaye, representing the SACWIS, will now proceed with the first presentation. And I'll give a moment for folks to swap in here. Good morning. Good to see you all. The presentation should be popping up shortly here.
Perfect. And good morning, all. Feels like I was just here for last year's SACWIS info item, so the year went by quick.
Apologies, we're having a few computer technical difficulties. I don't know if you want to try to start to go through it. I don't know. Margie, do you know how long before it'll pop back up? Okay, we give it a moment more. Thanks. Appreciate the patience.
Okay, good morning again. And before I hop into the presentation, just a quick correction. The representative for the Public Utilities Commission here today will be Miss Christine Root and not Luan Tesfaye. Okay. My name is Jonathan Dolan, and I'm an environmental scientist in the Ocean Standards Unit in the Division of Water Quality. Today, I'll be presenting on the 2025 report of the Statewide Advisory Committee on Cooling Water Intake Structures, or the SACWIS. Today, we'll be hearing from representatives of the SACWIS, and we will also be hearing from representatives from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power in a presentation that will follow this one. Next slide, please. So the SACWIS is an advisory committee that advises the State Water Board on implementation of the water quality control policy on the use of coastal and estuarine waters for power plant cooling, which we also call the once through cooling or the OTC policy, to ensure power plant compliance schedules are consistent with local and statewide grid reliability needs. The SACWIS convenes at least annually to consider a draft SACWIS report, which includes the status of OTC power plant compliance and recommendations to ensure grid reliability. The SACWIS last convened on March 21st, 2025, and approved the SACWIS report. The purpose of this informational item is to provide updates from this SACWIS report and the March 21st SACWIS meeting. Next slide, please. The final SACWIS report includes details regarding the status of OTC policy compliance and water use, updates on grid resource and infrastructure planning that pertains to OTC power plant planning and capacity replacement, details on air and water quality, regulatory considerations, and permitting associated with OTC power plants, and recommendations from the SACWIS as related to OTC policy implementation. The final SACWIS report does not recommend any compliance date extensions. However, the SACWIS is closely monitoring capacity procurement and grid reliability status. Next slide. Regarding OTC policy compliance, the OTC policy was originally applied to 19 power plants located along California's coast. As of today, 12 of these power plants are in full compliance with the policy, and 7 are on track to achieve final compliance with the policy. The facility that most recently attained full compliance with the OTC policy is Redondo Beach Generating Station, which retired by December 31st, 2023. Next slide. This graph, which is included in the final SACWIS report, shows historic and projected water use for all OTC power plants as a daily average in millions of gallons per day. Water use is on the y-axis and time is on the x-axis. The blue line represents design flow rates based on the current compliance schedule in the policy. The green line represents design flow rates based on the OTC policy's original 2010 compliance schedule, and the red line represents actual flow data reported by the facilities to the US EPA. The red line shows that daily average water use has decreased over time as power plants have come into compliance with the policy. The dashed red line shows projected flow rates through 2031. As shown in the figure, the projected fleet water use is still below design flow rates from the policy's current compliance schedule. Next slide. The final SACWIS report also includes information describing water quality requirements and procedures for operational power plants still using once-through cooling, and that are not yet in final compliance with the OTC policy, such as water quality-related considerations and permitting. Discharges from these power plants are regulated through National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits issued by regional water boards. All are presently operating under valid National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits, though several of these permits will expire prior to their associated facilities' OTC policy compliance date. Applicable regional water boards may consider renewing or administratively extending these permits subject to applications and complete reports of waste discharge from permittees. The status of each power plant permit is described in the final SACWIS report. Okay, and we're now going to hear additional details from the California Air Resources Board representative on the status of air quality regulatory requirements. Next slide, please. And I will now be handing it over to Lan Ma from the California Air Resources Board.
Thanks, Jonathan. CARB staff's role as part of SACWIS involves coordinating with the local air districts to confirm that facility permit requirements will continue to be met during the OTC policy implementation and to monitor the facility's compliance. CARB also works collaboratively with local air districts to identify provisions in current rules and rules under development that may have bearing on OTC operations. In the next two slides, I'll summarize some high-level takeaways from the air quality regulatory consideration portion of the SACWIS report. Regarding permitting requirements, the operating gas-fired OTC facilities will need to renew their Title V permits to continue operating through their 2026 or 2029 OTC policy compliance dates. Facilities are allowed to operate with permits that are up for renewal to allow operation through those approved timelines. Currently, all facilities either have a valid Title V permit or are operating under a Title V permit renewal application shield until their renewal permits are issued. Huntington Beach renewed its permit last year. Harbor recently received its renewal permit, and renewals are underway for Ormond Beach, Alamitos, Scattergood, and Haines. Next slide, please. The OTC units may continue operating in accordance with their permits and must meet all regulatory requirements, including any applicable regulatory requirements adopted as part of future rulemaking activities. Based on information available through the first quarter of 2025, the operating OTC facilities are in compliance with air quality rules. And in terms of the rules that could affect operation of the OTC units, the South Coast Air Quality Management District Rule 1135 sets best available retrofit control technology level emission standards for NOx. And Rule 429.2 is a companion rule to Rule 1135, and that establishes requirements for generating unit startup, shutdown, and malfunction events. Both of these rules include corresponding monitoring, record keeping, and reporting requirements. For the OTC units that will retire by their OTC policy compliance dates, these rules will allow limited scope and limited term exemptions through the end of 2029. However, the exemptions would not apply to cases where the OTC system is removed to comply with OTC policy, but that the existing fossil fuel fire generating unit continues operating. It is our understanding that the OTC units at Alamitos and Huntington Beach qualify for these exemptions. We further understand that there are plans to change out the OTC systems for Harbor Unit 5, Haines Units 1, 2, and 8, and Scattergood Units 1 and 2, but they remained all repower the associated gas generating units, which would mean that the Rule 1135 and 429.2 exemptions would not apply. However, according to LADWP, the gas generating units already comply with the applicable emissions and operational provisions of these rules. Any future projects at these facilities that would involve modifying existing units or installing new units that emit pollutants will need to go through permit application and evaluation at the respective air districts. These include meeting new source review rules and any applicable best available control technology and emission offset requirements. Now I'd like to pass the presentation to Ms. Christine Root of the California Public Utilities Commission.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. Good morning, and thanks for having me. My name is Christine Root, and I oversee the CPUC Integrated Resource Planning Procurement Oversight Unit. In the final SACWA's report, we reported procurement through the end of 2024, which is on this current slide, in net qualifying capacity, or NQC. You will note that total procurement, including imports from 2020 through 2024, was a little over 16,000 megawatts in QC. We had record additions in 2024 with an additional 4,500 megawatts in QC coming online, the majority of which was storage resources along with some solar and hybrid resources as well. You may also note that this was a little over 1,000 megawatts net qualifying capacity increase from the previous year, providing record amounts of procurement for the state. Since the publication of the final report, we have more current procurement information through March 2025 on the CPUC website. Next slide, please. And I will hand this one over to Neil at the Cal ISO.
Good morning, Neil Miller with the Cal ISO. I'll just provide a very quick overview of the summer of 2024 experience. So you may recall that in 2024, the OTC units in our footprint migrated into the State Strategic Reliability Reserve, and that allows the ISO to access those resources when extreme events or emergency conditions are being forecast. And early in in July and in September of this last summer, we did have to operate through several periods of prolonged heat wave and additional wildfire risk that did pose additional risks to the grid overall. At the same time, the heat forecasted in the balancing authority areas outside of California were also suggesting that we could be having trouble accessing imports. So taking those conditions into account, we did instruct the once-through cooling units in our footprint to start up on 3 separate occasions last summer. In each case, they were instructed to start up and operate at minimum load, recognizing their longer startup times for those units, so that we could call on them on shorter notice to ramp up and achieve their higher output. But in all 3 cases, the demand and the temperature forecast somewhat abated, and we were able to move forward without moving the units past their minimum and allowing them to shut back down. So just in summary, we have been operating these units very sparingly under those new protocols. That is reflected in their capacity factors. The capacity factors for these units are listed on page 10 of the full report and are generally below 0.5%. So that's a significant reduction from when they were participating in the market. Thank you.
All right, and can we go to the next slide, please? Great. So this graph shows recent clean energy procurement in terms of nameplate capacity. As you can see on this graph, we've observed significant increases in the amount of new resources coming online each year. Last year's clean energy record in 2024 broke the previous record for largest additions of clean energy set in 2023 and 2022 and so on. In addition to the 25 gigawatts of nameplate capacity that has come online since 2020, we're looking at an additional 20 gigawatts to be online by the end of 2028, as shown on this graph. And this is based on contracts currently in place to CPUC jurisdictional load serving entities. A majority of these contracts are, again, storage and solar resources with a notable amount of hybrid and wind as well. A lot of these contracts are in place to meet the CPUC's integrated resource planning clean energy procurement requirements by 2028. Next slide, please, and I'll turn it to Alicia at the CEC.
Good morning. My name is Alicia Gutierrez, and I'm the SACWIS member representing the California Energy Commission. I'm here today to give the system reliability update presented in the Senate Bill 846 Combined First and Second Quarterly Joint Reliability Planning Assessment Report, also known as the SB 846 report. This report is developed with the CPUC and in coordination with the California Independent System Operator and the Department of Water Resources. The report provides a comparison of forecasted supply and demand within the California Independent System Operator footprint and assessing our need for contingency resources under extreme conditions. Overall, we're cautiously optimistic for the summer and the years ahead. For 2025, analysis shows a surplus of more than 5,500 megawatts during peak demand under year average conditions and more than 1,300 megawatts of surplus under a 2022 equivalent heat event. There is, however, additional risk under extreme west-wide heat events, resource build delays, and reduction of import capacity due to fires. Under an extreme scenario where there are resource build delays of 40%, along with a 2022-like heat event, there could be a potential shortfall of up to 1,600 megawatts. For the 10-year outlook, we look at 2025 to 2035. The system reliability is expected to continue to improve from new resource additions, new energy efficiency and demand response programs, the extension of the Diablo Canyon power plant, as well as projected reduction in summer peak demands. Next slide, please. Here we analyze a number of scenarios to identify conditions that might require contingency resources. This graph illustrates one of those scenarios for summer 2025. The hourly stack shows a September 2025 peak day with a 2022 equivalent heat event and supply delays for 40% of anticipated new resources. Under this scenario, we have a surplus of 700 megawatts and would not need contingency resources. If, however, we had a coincident event impacting imports into the state, such as a major wildfire disrupting transmission, we could have a need for contingency resources. Next slide, please. Moving to the 10-year outlook, this slide shows a heat map of project resource shortfalls or surpluses under average year conditions through the next 10 years. The x-axis is the hour of the forecasted peak day, while the y-axis is the year. We are projecting that we have sufficient resources under average conditions through the end of the decade, which is how far current procurement offers extend to. We anticipate that current planning and procurement processes will continually address procurement needs for the 3 to 5 year out time period. Next slide, next slide, please. And this slide illustrates the long-term projections given current procurement orders under 2020 and 2022 equivalent extreme heat events. We currently project a need for contingencies under these scenarios as early as 2030 for a 2020 equivalent event and 2031 under a 2022 equivalent event. Although we anticipate these needs to sharply reduce once procurement targeting 2030 and beyond is underway. And again, we would have additional need for contingency resources under coincident events impacting imports to the state. That concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'll hand it back to Jonathan.
Okay, so just wanted to basically conclude the presentation, reiterating the final conclusion from the SACWIS report, which is that at this time, the most important thing is the SACWIS is not recommending any extensions of any OTC facilities. That said, there are still certain risks. The grid does remain susceptible to delays such as authorized procurement of new resources, and extreme events such as widespread heat, as well as coincident extreme events. So the SACWIS does continue to monitor grid reliability. We do continue to meet regularly to discuss. We have at least annual meetings, and there is an interagency working group that meets bi-weekly to continue to track these matters, and we will be continuing to meet moving forward. Next slide, please. So at this time, happy to take any questions from board members before we move on to the presentation from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Thank you.
Many thanks. Just have to commend the work of the SACWIS and all your respective agencies. I'm really glad, obviously, to hear that there's no recommendation for extension, but definitely hear as well that we have a lot of uncertainty, and appreciate the opportunity to have this presentation before we're really entering into these hot summer months. Glad to hear, again, that last year, although the plants were spooled up to be able to fill or do additional power production, it wasn't necessarily necessary. So appreciate the cautious way by which those resources are being accessed. But importantly, just really appreciative of what's incredible progress on the procurement side, and seeing the needs continue to be met here. So just thanks, really, really appreciative again of the work, and glad that as the board adopted the once through cooling policy, that we had the SACWIS here, so that the convening and ability to understand from sister agencies where we are on the energy side, as we also pursue these important water quality protections and advancements, are balanced. And it just means a lot, again, the contributions from all the sister agencies here. So thank you. Looking to fellow board colleagues if they have questions outright currently for folks. Seeing none, then we can transition to the LA Department of Water and Power. Thank you again. Really appreciate your time this morning. Good morning. Good to see you both. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you for being up here. You may want to double check your mic, just to make sure it's on there at the base.
There. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Catherine Rubin. I'm the Director of Corporate Environmental Affairs, and today with me is Tony Skortis. And Tony, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Tony Skortis. I'm the Manager of Energy Control Operations with the Operations and Grid Reliability Division.
Great. It's our pleasure to give you our update as part of our extension with Scattergood. You asked us to be here each year to give you our annual update on our OTC units and on our status of how we're doing. And so with that, we will start our presentation, and next slide will go to Tony.
Sure. Thank you. So we're here to talk about the once through cooling units, but I'd like to take just a few minutes to talk about how they fit into our overall system. LADWP is a little bit different than a lot of other utilities in that we own and operate our own generation, transmission, and distribution systems. Cover the whole thing start to finish. And we also serve as an independent balancing authority. So to put it in perspective, like from a size perspective, the load of LADWP is about 10% that of the California ISO. Now, if things were proportional, you would expect that we would have about 10% of the transmission as well, but we have about 20%, double what you would expect for a utility of our size. So it's quite an extensive transmission network. Next slide, please. Now, a large part of how we evolved and the reason why we have such an extensive transmission network is because Los Angeles is on the West Coast. And what that means is most of the energy that we generate or import comes from the north and the east, often from very long distances. And bringing energy from those long distances is challenging. I like to call it, forgive me if you've heard this before, but I think of it as it's like trying to pick up a couch from one end only. It's practically impossible to do if you don't have some support on the other end. Well, those coastal units, in essence, they serve as that support on the other end of a very long transmission network. Next slide, please. So the 2024 grid reliability results, what they told us is that we need to upgrade certain key transmission elements. And we work on that every single day. Next slide. But that puts us in a bit of a catch-22. To work on those transmission circuits, to upgrade them, we need to take them out of service. And whenever you take a circuit out of service, we perform studies like what we're seeing up here. We perform studies every day for the conditions we expect and also to cover any contingencies that may arise. And those studies, what they tell us is what is the minimum amount of generation that we have to have either available or online to maintain grid reliability, and also where we need to have those units. Next slide. And what they consistently tell us is that it's, again, those coastal units, those are the units that are critical for maintaining grid reliability while we perform those transmission upgrades. And we mean every one of those units, including the once-through cooling units, we need all of them. So it's kind of a paradox that in order to get to where we want to be, those older units, including the ones through cooling units, are acting as a bridge to get there. And with that, I'll pass it to Catherine.
Thank you, Tony. Next slide. So to give you a progress status on our last of our OTC fleet at our different facilities here, Scattergood generating station units 1 and 2 for our hydrogen-ready units. We kept our draft EIR comment period open for 5.5 months. That was because we had the NREL, that they had done a study for us before on the non-combustible alternatives, but we wanted them to do it again in depth. And they finished that study in March, and so we left the comment period open for 30 additional days to close on April 7th. We are now putting together all of our response to comments and putting that package together, and we expect our EIR to go to our board for approval late fall, early winter. Our air permit applications that Lan was speaking of, all of those permit applications have been sent to the South Coast AQMD. We expect South Coast AQMD to very shortly send them over to the EPA, and at which time they will become public, and there will be a 30-day comment period on those applications. They will then wait for our RFP process to be completed to figure out which vendor will be the successful vendor, and then they will issue the final permit. So our water permitting is in process. We're coordinating with, of course, LA SAN, as well as the LA Water Board. And our request for proposals are also, that process is happening as we speak. So we are hoping to have all of this wrapped up in 2026 so that we can start actually then constructing units and be done by December 31st, 2029. Looks like we're in pretty good shape there. Haynes Unit 8, that CEQA process is completely done. We are working with the City of Long Beach. We've been building the pipelines to and from the Haynes generating station, and we are in that process and getting ready to start the construction, and we should be done with those pipelines by 2027. So that is also on schedule. Haynes Units 1 and 2. Our planning folks in the power system, they're still assessing all of their options. We're determining flow needs, so we're still a bit in the planning stage, but we're getting closer to where we need to be. And the same thing with Harbor Unit 5. The CEQA is now underway. And we're also evaluating discharge options with LA SAN and the LA Water Board. We expect to keep the discharge side open because if the LA SAN, if the terminal island plant cannot accept our waste, our process waste streams, we will still need to discharge, but we will not be using one through cooling. So it looks like everybody is on target and on schedule. Next slide. We did the voluntary environmental benefits with the Coastal Conservancy. That MOU was completed, and we did our first payment to them for the $3 million March 1st, 2025, and then the next payment will be due March 1st, 2026. And I think that concludes our update to you. Any questions?
None, other than just a lot of thanks. Appreciate that things seem to be on track, and I know there's a lot going on, so really appreciate you being here with us and helping provide this update. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks. Looking to fellow board colleagues in case there is additional comment there. And we don't have public commenters, and so just whatever dais comment we have will be what we have. So thank you. Much appreciated again.
Thank you. We'll see you next year.
Yes, see you next year. Really appreciate it. Have a healthy summer. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Ms. Frack, anything further from you two, or are we good?
I believe that concludes for us at this point. So we appreciate your time, and of course, all of our colleagues, we appreciate their time as well.
Much thanks as well. Really appreciate the update. Good seeing you again here. See you again very soon. So thank you. All right, that concludes item number 5. And will bring us to our board workshop. Let's go ahead and just give ourselves a quick 10-minute break. We can just come back here at, let's just say, we'll do like 5-10-minute break. We'll come back at 11 or 10:16 rather, and we'll start in on item number 6. Give folks a moment to be able to swap out. So see you here again at 10, I keep saying 11, 10:16. We'll be good. Thank you.
Yeah. Good thing we're not on camera.
Well, you were, but that's okay. You're gonna go viral.
Oh, gosh.
In the middle.
Yeah. I know. Yes. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you for the break. Appreciate it. We can bring ourselves back now. And so now we move on to our board workshop where we'll hear from our Division of Financial Assistance regarding the 2025-26 Clean Water State Revolving Fund Intended Use Plan. Good to be here. Thank you all. Good to see you.
There we go. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Lisa Hong. I oversee our Clean Water SRF, Drinking Water SRF, and Water Recycling Funding programs in DFA. And with me today are our Assistant Deputy Director, Mike Downey, and our attorney, Matt Wilson. We're here today to talk to you about the 25-26 Clean Water SRF Draft Intended Use Plan. This is a workshop item to receive public comments, so not a voting item today. Next slide, please. A quick preview of the presentation to come. We'll start with a purpose of the Intended Use Plan, or IUP for short. And then we'll look at past financing and then look forward at the 2025 financial outlook. The majority of presentation today will focus on program proposals. So what does the 2025 financial outlook mean for various programs? We'll start with Clean Water SRF loan, then go through small community wastewater, water recycling, and end with stormwater and a schedule of the IUP. Next slide, please. Starting with some purpose of the intended use plan, the IUP is prepared every year as we're looking forward at next fiscal year's budget and prioritizing projects and program priorities for the next fiscal year. So the IUP will guide staff in implementing Clean Water SRF, small community wastewater, and water recycling funding programs for the upcoming fiscal year. It is also a required document to apply for the capitalization grant from US EPA each year. In addition to federal funds, we also incorporate state funds into the intended use plan. So the Proposition 4 is new in the IUP this year. We also have what's remaining from Prop 1 and Prop 68, as well as the 2024 and 2025 State Budget Act appropriations incorporated. A quick note that the draft IUP and this presentation includes may revise from the state budget. I don't believe the final budget is out yet, so any changes in the final budget will need to be incorporated into the final IUP before it comes to you for consideration of adoption. Next slide, please. Before taking a look at the 2025 outlook, we thought a diagram of how Clean Water SRF works and some of those historic financing numbers are helpful to set up the context for some of the later slides we'll see today. So I'm going to start on the top right corner of the diagram. The majority of funding coming into the program are federal appropriations. So we have received $3.8 billion through federal appropriations since 1989, pretty much the inception of the program. And it has been a steady annual appropriation. So the amount varies a little bit. It has been an annual appropriation. Currently, there is a state match that's required. The state is required to match $1 for every $5 in federal investment. And we have received over $500 million in state match funds. Also coming into the program are revenue bonds proceeds. So we do sell our own bond, which means we take on debt in order to inject more cash flow immediately into the program. And that debt is then repaid with loan repayments over time. That concept is called leveraging. There are a few ways that funds can go out of the program. One is through low interest loans. We have given out $14.6 billion in low interest loans throughout the lifetime of the program. Those loans get repaid over time, and then they can be given out again to more projects. Funds can also go out as principal forgiveness, which is a fancy way of saying grant. $768 million have been given out as principal forgiveness, and $134 million have been used for program administration. So for principal forgiveness and program administration, once those funds are used, they're gone. They don't come back into the program. Next slide, please. This slide shows more recent financing over the last 5 years. It has both federal and state funds, and it shows financing for wastewater projects, water recycling, and stormwater. So for fiscal year 24-25, the current fiscal year we're in, DFA has committed $543 million to 37 projects so far. The numbers are as of March 1st, so the actual number by the end of fiscal year will likely be higher. Next slide, please. Looking at the 2025 financial outlook, this year we're receiving the full capitalization grant. And on the right side, there is a graph that shows annual capitalization grant federally. The green bar is the base program, so that's the annual appropriation that's been going on since 1989. You may notice that the green bar kind of dipped between 2022 and 2024. That is due to congressionally directed spending, so Congress will allocate funds directly to projects instead of giving them to the state, and that resulted in lesser base programs for the last 3 years. For this year, Congress passed a continuing resolution without any congressionally directed spending, so you see the green bar kind of at the historical levels. The yellow bar is IIJA, Infrastructure Investment and Job Act appropriations. The act was passed in 2022, and all the appropriations were made up front. It is a 5-year appropriation ending 2026. So for 2025, we are receiving $305 million in total, $140 in loans, $147 million in principal forgiveness, and we have $17 million that can be used for program administration.
I just want to quickly note, I know right now there are proposals within Congress to significantly reduce that baseline program even further. So when it comes to those out years and them kind of falling back down, seeing as 2025 again with the CR brought us back up to our usual baseline, I think it's very appropriate that we don't show that full amount there. And just to note for everyone, there's a lot of just question as to where Congress will land in its support for these programs, and to the extent folks can really advocate, appreciate if they do. So thank you, Ms. Hong.
Much appreciated. Next slide, please. Well, Joaquin perfectly predicted the next slide. The president did propose in the 2026 budget to cut a number of programs, including SRF annual appropriations moving forward. And there have been questions about what does that mean. I'm sure you all have heard about it too. So we have a slide talking through some of that implications if it comes to fruition. So if you remember from a few slides ago, we showed a diagram of how funding can come in and how funding can go out. So for the loan program, it will remain operational, though at a lower capacity because we still have repayments coming in. There will be an initial drop in capacity to about $500 million. And then the program will also naturally have less capacity to leverage and take on our own debt over time. At zero leveraging, the capacity is about $215 million per year. So what you'll see is that there's an initial drop, and then the capacity will also lessen over time, but it should not dip below $215 million per year. For principal forgiveness, it will be impacted much more directly and much more immediately. Because principal forgiveness functions like a grant, it is very reliant on direct appropriation each year. It also means DFA would need to direct more of the loan earnings towards program administration cost. So from the last slide, you might remember we're getting $17 million this year towards program administration. That's part of the annual appropriation. So if annual appropriation goes away, so does the administration cost, and we will need to redirect the loan earnings towards administration. All that being said, the 2026 IIJA funds should still be available because IIJA funds were appropriated upfront in 2022, so those should still be available next year. And then a bolded disclaimer on the bottom that this is not an official budget passed by the Congress. This is the president's proposed budget. I'm sure there's still a ton of conversations going on. And for this year's intended use plan, we're looking at the 2025 official budget that is being passed. We're not proposing the board to make any pre-decisions for 2026. Next slide, please.
Many thanks.
With all that context information, we'll look at what the 2025 budget means for various programs. Start with clean water SRF loans. Next slide, please. This table shows recent financing for loans only for the last 5 years. For fiscal year 24-25, there are 8 agreements for $154 million that have been executed, and there's another 8 agreements for $482 million that's routing around for final signature. So together, we are expecting a little over $600 million to be executed this year, which is within the funding capacity range.
Yeah, and just apologize to interrupt. And just for context for folks who may be seeing this and think, what happened in 2021, 22? Why are there 38 projects there? And it's because the Build America, Buy America provisions that were incorporated into the bipartisan infrastructure law took effect that following fiscal year for projects there. So we had a number of folks trying to get in before those provisions necessarily came in. So that's why you see that huge number that year.
Thank you, Joaquin, for explaining the fluctuation. It is not because we worked extra hard in 21-22 and then decided to not work hard in 23-24. Thank you. Next slide, please. In addition to the pending applications in-house, we're also managing a number of loan projects that are currently under construction. So there are 65 projects that have received a funding agreement that are currently under construction. 65 may not seem like a very large number, but they do make up $3.8 billion in funding commitments, and $2 billion of which remain to be dispersed as invoices are coming in. So it is a lot of dollar amounts that are still very much committed and under active management. Next slide, please. For loan capacity this year, it remains at $600 million per year for this year. We work with a financial advisor to analyze the long-term sustainable loan capacity and use that to help inform the cutoff score and the recommendation for the fundable list for loans. A quick note that this does not apply to small community wastewater applicant. On the right-hand side, you can see a graph. The blue line shows a 5-year average for loan commitments, and the orange line is the long-term sustainable capacity. As Joaquin mentioned, that 1 year of $2 billion of projects executing really bumped up that sustainable capacity. And over the last few years, we're seeing it coming back down, kind of normalizing and going into the sustainable range, which is good. That's where we want to be. Next slide, please. This slide shows how the fundable list is developed. So we start with a list of pending applications in-house. We call that the comprehensive list. Then for a loan project, each project receives a priority score. This list of projects is then compared to the capacity we have available for loans, and then we recommend a cutoff score and use that to develop the fundable list. Next slide, please. We have a few scenarios for cutoff scores. The draft IUP proposes scenario D, which is a cutoff score of 13, adding 10 new projects to the fundable list. You may notice that the estimated loan amount is larger than $600 million, which is the sustainable target. The reason for that is because we need to select enough new projects to meet our federal equivalency requirement. So each year we are required to select a number of projects equivalent to the federal capitalization grant that we're getting. Those projects are required to meet additional federal requirements, including Build America, Buy America. Build America, Buy America is very challenging to apply to existing projects on the fundable list, especially if someone already started construction. So we are choosing to apply it to new projects, and to do that, we need to add enough new projects to the fundable list. And that's why you're seeing a recommendation of scenario D here. Next slide, please. And now we'll talk about small community wastewater. The next few programs are all grant and principal forgiveness focused. Next slide, please. This table shows recent financing over the last 5 years for small community wastewater. For fiscal year 24-25, 21 agreements have been executed. There is additional 5 that's routing for final signature. Together, it will bring the commitments to about $400 million, which is a huge achievement for small community wastewater. Next slide, please. New to this IUP is Proposition 4 funding. Prop 4 passed in November of last year. It allocates funds for wastewater, drinking water, water recycling, stormwater, and some U.S.-Mexico border water quality projects. The actual appropriations we don't get upfront. We get it spread out across 3 to 5 years. So for Prop 4 allocations, wastewater and drinking water projects are allocated under one section for $610 million in total, spread across 3 to 5 years. This year, the May revise proposed to appropriate about $180 million for wastewater and drinking water projects together. This IUP proposed a 50-50 split between wastewater and drinking water projects, which would mean about $90 million in appropriation for wastewater projects from Prop 4. Next slide, please. And this table has a breakdown of all the funding sources available for small community wastewater this year. You can see a significant chunk come from Prop 4, and also significant chunks come from Clean Water SRF principal forgiveness. But we also have Budget Act of 2024 greenhouse gas reduction funds and what's remaining of Prop 1 as well. That brings the total funding available to $456 million.
And just a quick shout out to the Division of Financial Assistance here. You know, as you can see, we do have a lot of different pots, and appreciate that we don't make our applicants hunt and pick amongst them and try to figure out which one they should go for, and instead really provide a service to folks to work with the applicants to figure out what makes the most sense out of what are a number of varied pots that we end up getting through both the federal and state legislatures. So thank you for that, Ms. Hong.
Thank you, Joaquin. I'd like to echo that because different pots do have different funding requirements. So a lot of times DFA is managing and navigating that on the back end. And I know Bridget Chase is in the audience who manages small community wastewater. So special shout out to Bridget. Next slide, please. Looking at the funding proposal for this year. Last year, the grant and PF budget is much more constrained, so we were conscious of how many projects we can realistically fund. And this year, with more grant and PF available, we're expanding the eligibility in a few ways. So one, there is a higher grant and PF amount per project. And also there is a higher limit to cost per connection this year as well. Last year, we were focused on projects that were addressing a violation and septic to sewer projects only. This year, we're making other project types eligible for grant funds as well at 50% of the project cost. So the applicants can choose to come to us for loans for the other 50%, but they don't have to. They can find other ways to come up with the other 50% as well. Next slide, please. So what does that proposal mean for the funding that is available this year? There's $456 million that's available. We have 37 complete applications in-house for projects that either address a violation or are septic to sewer. Those make up about $347 million. We're also projecting about $90 million in cost increases. We've been seeing a lot of cost increases, and some folks are coming back to us to ask for a grant increase as well. So we're budgeting $90 million for that. Those two together do take up the majority of the funding available. However, we're cognizant that not every project moves forward at the same pace, and some project will naturally just need more than 1 year to execute. So we have 51 incomplete applications, or what we call secondary priorities, which are other project types. So if any of these projects have complete applications and are ready to move towards an executed funding agreement, they have an opportunity to come to the front of the line this year. There's a note on the bottom that secondary priority projects are marked as incomplete in the IUP because staff are reviewing to confirm that applicants are interested in the 50% grant offer. And if they want to take out a loan with us, there will be additional documents that are needed for loan eligibility. Next slide, please. Moving on to water recycling funding program. Next slide. This slide shows the funding available for water recycling funding. 3 funding types: planning grant, construction grant, and a little bit of construction loan available. When we're talking about planning grant for water recycling, it's really feasibility studies, not necessarily planning for environmental planning or for engineering design. The most popular type is definitely construction grant. That's what most of our applicants come to us for. You may notice that yellow-orange bar makes up a huge proportion of the funding we have available. So that is Proposition 4 funds. May revise appropriates $150 million for water recycling for this year. So if the final budget looks very different than the May revise, that will heavily impact water recycling funding available. Next slide, please. Before going into the proposal for water recycling this year, we thought a little bit of context will be helpful. In 2021 through 2023, the state appropriated general funds for water recycling projects. And then in fiscal year 23-24, due to the budget shortfall, the state reduced prior appropriations by $270 million for water recycling and groundwater projects. As a result of that, water recycling grant maximum got reduced. And at the time, the board adopted a resolution essentially saying that if more grant funds become available in fiscal year 24-25, then we would consider giving additional grants to the projects that are impacted by the budget reduction. Then 24-25 came, we got 70 million back in appropriation, and then 51 million got reverted. So again, grant maximum got reduced again. And now that we're at 25-26, we did get Prop 4, which is very exciting. It allocates 386 million for water recycling projects in total. The May revise proposes 150 million to be available this year. Next slide, please. So what does that mean for our proposal this year? We're proposing a grant maximum of 15 million, which is consistent with the historical water recycling grant maximum. We're also proposing for projects that were on the 23-24 and 2020 and 24-25 fundable list impacted by that grant maximum reduction can be considered for additional grant up to 15 million. Prop 4 also introduced this concept of large-scale projects. And we're proposing large-scale to mean projects delivering at least 10,000 acre-feet per year, and they can get 15 million max per phase. For large-scale water recycling projects, Prop 4 requires that planning, design, and construction costs are all eligible, and user agreements are not required. Next slide, please. And lastly, we'll finish off with stormwater. Previously, we have heard that It is difficult to motivate applicants to apply for stormwater projects when there are no stormwater funding available. At the same time, when the budget is super tight, it's hard to set aside funding for applications we don't have. So this year, with more budget available, we're proposing to use $20 million of principal forgiveness for stormwater projects. In addition, $16.5 million are available through a small federal grant. It's a really mouthful to say, so I'm not going to say it. It's called OSG for short. And also good news for stormwater community. Prop 4 includes $110 million for stormwater projects. We're not expecting to get any appropriation this year. Appropriation is expected to start next year. DFA is also expecting that stormwater projects will have a solicitation process and not be administered through the IUP. And last of all, estuary projects can receive $1 million max in principal forgiveness, same as prior IUPs. Next slide, please. Finishing off with the schedule, the draft IUP was released at the end of May. We're currently at the board workshop for public comments. Comments are due on June 30th. And we plan to bring the final IUP to the board for consideration of adoption early August. And we will need to incorporate the final state budget when it comes out into the final IUP before bringing it to you for adoption. And with that, we can open it up for public comments.
Many, many thanks. Just really appreciate the great care and work that continues to go on to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the other funds that we have in packing it into the intended use plan. I want to call out particularly the stormwater dollars. Really exciting to see that principal forgiveness there. I think there's a real opportunity to continue to invest in stormwater. There's a lot of local discussions going on. I was just in Los Angeles yesterday on a summit around the LA County Water Plan. And I know, with Measure W and all the investment that's being done locally, having these dollars are really critical to continue to generate projects to come through. And it's one of the more important spaces that I think we can really be focusing on as we continue to expand the state's water portfolio, along with water recycling, obviously, and other pots out there. But just want to give a particular shout out to the stormwater work. Really appreciative of that. Looking to fellow board colleagues if they have questions and comment. Board Member Morgan.
Just wanted to say thank you, Ms. Hong, for the comprehensive presentation, especially, I think, our funding program is one of our, I'm going to say more complex programs. It's, you would think that it's very simple and it's very straightforward. It's just that there's a lot of terminology and there's a lot of, where's the funding come from? How can it be used? And so I think you did a really good job of just walking us through the flow of the funds and the, and just really how the diagram on slide 4 was very, very helpful. It's just really showing just where that funding comes from and how that it is a revolving fund. But still, even though it is a revolving fund, we really do rely upon the capitalization grant and then to a much smaller degree on, the revenue bonds. And so just with that, then also just with looking at the capitalization grant, it's a huge part of the program. And then, while we have an amount, and Chair Esquivel did speak to this, we have an amount that has been stated for currently. It is not an amount that is actually in the federal budget and that has been approved and passed. And so there's always this evolving process. And even, if putting together a draft plan, having our workshop, receiving comment and having these, I'm going to say placeholder numbers, and then waiting for approved budget to see what is that final number. And part of this is that we have to submit we finalize our plan and we submit it. And the federal budget, as we know, may not pass for a while after. And so it really is this, this waiting and seeing and waiting for our plan to be finalized and then to get that number. And it's it's difficult. And so really understanding that while you may have, this anticipation, I say anticipation, but you have a number that's in there right now that's showing the full grant. We know that there's a good chance that it may be half or less. And so just waiting to see what does that come and how do we then plan around that. And then same thing for future years. It's an annual exercise that you all go through. That it's not an easy exercise. So, thank you for walking us through that and really helping to educate, our stakeholders on that process. And then I just wanted to just say, thank you to Ms. Chase and her staff I see in the audience for all their work around small community wastewater. And, I know this was a comment that I had of just really showing, the need in addition to, because we have what is going into the intended use plan, the IUP, of showing, hey, here's the complete projects, here's, with the funding, and we can move through. There's also just this additional amount of projects in need that we know of that is sitting there that we may have listed as incomplete for internal reasons, but we know that there's this huge amount of additional need that is sitting there. And, those that know me know that, wastewater is dear to me, and just the health and environmental impacts that can come from a system can be huge. They're large. They're impactful. And so just having that bigger understanding of what those needs are critical to me. And so I just want to thank her for really laying that out and showing that we have twice as much need that we know of at this moment. That is within the state for small community wastewater, for our small community wastewater program, than we have funding for at this moment in time. And, in that as we go through the wastewater needs assessment, we'll learn more and we'll see what other need that may be out there that we don't even know about at this point in time, to really see what is the need for our wastewater systems that are aging, and really see, how can we help those systems and really improve our wastewater infrastructure and the need for sanitation. So thank you. I really do appreciate the presentation and the good work that both you and Ms. Chase and her staff are doing.
Thank you, board member. Great comments. Board member Firestone.
Well, definitely echo that thanks and admiration, and also just the recognition that there's way more need than we have funding for, and hopefully we can find a way to better finance or increase financing for these important projects, and look forward also to the needs assessment. So thanks for all of those comments. And one question I have is on the septic to sewer. One of the things we've seen is after the devastating wildfires, and certainly we saw that in LA this year, there are a number of households that were on either septic or even cesspools in some areas that were grandfathered in. And can you just remind us for septic to sewer, if there's can you just remind us on priorities and how those may or may not fit in? I assume it has to do with income and a number of things, but if you can just speak a little bit to that, that would be great.
I might have to talk slowly in case Bridget wants to approach the mic also.
Bring it up here.
Yeah, so for the septic to sewer projects, we really started looking at that with the Budget Act of 2021 appropriations, which called that out specifically. And so at that time, we were looking at, kind of large communities with septic, and then small disadvantaged communities septic, and then realizing that, we're just categorizing basically every septic to sewer conversion as a small community. And so when we made that kind of initial call for applications years ago, we've been working with those same applicants for the most part, narrowing down And a lot of that 2021 appropriation money's gone, but we've continued to include that as a priority and grant eligibility for those septic to sewer conversions. So again, trying to see if I'm answering your question of categorizing them as small DACs, and that's how they kind of fit into the small and disadvantaged community buckets of eligibilities.
Star of the hour, Bridget. Bridget Chase, thank you for coming up. Sorry, we're trying to unmute you. Okay, you should be good now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Bridget Chase, Division of Financial Assistance, keep getting mentioned, so you know who I'm talking about now. The one thing just to flag there is, yeah, they would be considered small, but as far as disadvantaged, right now the funding is specifically for disadvantaged communities. That's what's being proposed in the IUP, which might not really fit with the LA communities. One thing that we don't have in the presentation right now is we are proposing to increase the technical assistance funding that is also available. So that could definitely help in those areas as well. We would use Prop 4 in particular for that and some of the state greenhouse gas reduction funds to potentially increase that. So we could start to develop a project potentially under there.
Great, thank you. And just one other follow-up on that is there size for septic to sewer if there are a few disadvantaged households? Can they qualify as, or is there a threshold of a number that needs to apply?
So we look at a community as a whole for that, or to be disadvantaged.
Thank you, Ms. Chase, and thank you, board member. Good questions. Not seeing any questions from the vice chair, unless, okay, thank you. And then we have about 14 commenters. So we'll start to get through and look forward to hearing from folks on their feedback. Again, this is a workshop, so really appreciate everyone's participation here to help us know how we're doing on this draft IUP here. First, I'd like to call up then Heidi Oriole, be followed by Angela Islas, and then Bob Gore and Karen Cowan.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
We can. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Thank you. My name is Heidi Oriole, and I'm a senior civil engineer in the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Group at the Sacramento Area Sewer District. SAC Sewer provides sewage collection, treatment, and resource recovery services like water recycling to a significant portion of the Sacramento region. And we serve more than 1.6 million people every day. I appreciate the opportunity to comment, and I'd like to express support for some later comments you'll be hearing from both CASA, the Water Reuse California Association, and also SWRCB. As you know, and you've discussed, the Clean Water SRF program is exceptionally important to clean water agencies throughout the state in order to implement very critical infrastructure work. And specifically, the program has supported SAC Sewer and our ratepayers in a number of ways over the years, including a very significant SRF loan in 2015 that made essential upgrades to our treatment plant possible. Secondly, grants supporting multiple septic to sewer conversion projects in the Sacramento region have been helpful, and a water recycling funding program grant that is anticipated to support the landmark Harvest Water, Recycled Water, and Habitat program. All of these projects further our mission to protect the environment and human health while also supporting thriving communities and agriculture and the economy in our region. We appreciate and support the very hard work of State Water Board staff and of your board to balance the many competing needs with limited funding each and every year. And as we've heard, this is a challenge. So we'd like to express our support for this year's proposed IUP, including a couple of specific elements: restoring the WRFP construction grant cap to $15 million, and also implementing the large-scale water recycling element of the WRFP that was created by Prop 4. Thank you very much for your work and your consideration, and this concludes my comments.
Thank you as well, Ms. Oriole. Really appreciate the engagement here, and I believe that loan still is the largest that we've provided yet through the program. So just thank you. Appreciate the acknowledgement and continued collaboration here and work. Next, I'd like to call up Angela Islas, be followed by Bob Gore, and then Karen Cowan. Ms. Islas, I know you were, oh, there you are.
Okay, yeah, it was not allowing me to unmute for a second. Sorry about that.
No worry. Good
Yeah,
morning.
good morning, Chair Esquivel, board members, Angela Islas here, Water Projects Coordinator, CCJ. And I'm actually going to just kind of do more of a short comment on my capacity as a SAFER Advisory Group member. I really appreciate the draft IUP release and run through. I think that I'm looking forward to maybe just diving a little bit more deeper in our next advisory group meeting that we'll be having later this month. I'm still really in anticipation of just the overlap of the IOP with the funding expenditure plan draft that will be coming out hopefully pretty soon. I know that there's definitely, still a lot of advocacy and need to be done around how to really best support domestic well communities, especially for the folks in Perry Colony and West Fresno County to help really push their application forward and kind of get them going along a lot quicker. That community really is an at-risk community with already another well identified with overexceedances of uranium in their well. So I think that, we're really trying to support that community to really see between the funding availability this year of how much we can better support their application to get pushed along. But I also want to just quickly emphasize about Proposition 4. I know that the proposition has definitions for vulnerable communities as well as meaningful benefits. I think it would be really best for the staff to look into those two definitions because that is something that Proposition 4 is going to be looking for the appropriations to more directly benefit those categories with the funding that is being allocated under the proposition. So just wanted to really flag that for the DFA staff to look into. But other than that, just really appreciate the overview and just looking forward to still continuing to engage at my capacity on the AG level. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate that service on the advisory group and appreciate the flag here. And what I look forward to, I know we will have coming up shortly here is a workshop on the drinking water intended use plan and the fund expenditure plan, and really appreciate that the Division of Financial Assistance has kind of combined those two a bit so that they can kind of talk to each other, if you will, given the importance of coordinating the resources across those two. So thank you for that. And thank you. Good to hear from you, Ms. Islas. Next, I'd like to call up Bob Gore, followed by Karen Cowan, and then Bill Zanoni.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and Madam Vice Chair, and members. This is Robert Gore from the Gualco Group on behalf of the cities of Fresno, Antioch, Santa Cruz, the South Coast Water District, Kings River entities, Kern County Water Authority, Modesto Irrigation, San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, San Gabriel Valley Water Quality Agency, and many others. We're entering, as the chair correctly mentioned, an ebb tide, an historic drought, if you will, to continue the metaphors for water funding. It will continue 3 to 5 years out. The SRFs are critical, as we all know, and keeping them fine-tuned, calibrated with these revisions is even more critical than normal, providing precision and clarity for the entities who need loans and grants is essential and continues DFA's tradition of exemplary public service. We need to add to this mix developing a navigator for projects that are urgent, complex, and other factors that we can develop. The process, as one of the DFA staff members noticed, is unusually complex and fraught. So adding a navigator for certain projects would be helpful. I would add that, especially over the next 3 years, we need to pay close attention and jointly advocate for Proposition 4 funding. This will be subject to offsets from general fund programs and other financial devices that essentially serve to diminish what we need in terms of funding. So we must all remember to stress the essentiality of public health and public safety, water infrastructure projects. I look forward to returning to the meeting room and hope to talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Look forward to seeing you there here, Mr. Gore, and really appreciate your comments and continued advocacy. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Karen Cowan, be followed by Bill Zanoni, and then Paul Wood.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. First, I want to start with a thank you to Chair Esquivel for your comments and opening here in the board comments about the importance of providing the principal forgiveness to stormwater. And that's, obviously my first comment, but I wanted to at least acknowledge yours. And shockingly, we support your view there. But truly, it's a phrase that the Public Policy Institute of California has used in calling stormwater a fiscal orphan. And I think that's really something to keep in mind. And there aren't many opportunities where you have the ability to do something about that as the board. And this is one area. So again, I really want to thank you. This is our comments last year to restore last year's principal forgiveness and to see it again in this year's proposed IUP is really encouraging, and I think sends a wonderful signal to the stormwater community about the value and investment in these projects. So thank you. Last year, we talked a little bit about demand, so I want to just note on that a little bit here today too. Obviously, the demand for stormwater is quite high. Sometimes we have some process barriers of what shows up compared to what you're making decisions on. I think related to putting more money into the principal forgiveness is another way to help with that demand, because when some things are one-off, I think you have folks who are, for whatever reason, a little bit more funded than some of the other portions of the state who are able to access that money. But the majority of the state, it takes a little bit more for them to have projects ready to go. And I think that consistent funding really does actually open the door to equity and inclusion and getting a lot more projects funded for stormwater across the state, because people know that there might be money there and that it's worth putting together these projects and going through the process and are able to, where they have a little bit more of a lead time to get on the list. So again, not only thank you for the money this year, but just an emphasis on how important that is year over year to continue to invest in stormwater and what that actually does in terms of projects. Obviously for us, in an ideal scenario, in which we're not living, but in an ideal scenario, would really like that principal forgiveness to be increased and potentially to reevaluate that $5 million cap. So I know we're all in a little bit of a budgetary uncertainty about the future here of the SRF, and I'm acknowledging that, obviously if funding's going down, we're going to be very well aware of that. But I do think it is worth noting. Again, we'll just pretend that all things are going to be going on the same way, and that the fund won't be going down. So where there could be an increase in the cap, that would help some other projects throughout the state. Process-wise, that's the other thing I sort of wanted to talk about. We talked about it last year in our comments and in our testimony. So I think there are some things that we can do to increase the demand and increase the projects that are actually getting onto the IUP itself and onto the fundable list. So right now, I think the application process is one of the larger barriers. It is a wastewater infrastructure process. It's not designed for stormwater. Much of the application, whole sections of the forms really just don't apply to stormwater. The scoring process doesn't fit. And frankly, it's just really confusing to stormwater applicants who look at that application and they don't see themselves on that or their projects in that process. And it kind of discourages folks from even thinking that the IUP is for them. Staff at DFA are, though, doing an excellent job, and I want to make sure that we note that here in our comments, where anybody does need assistance and reaches out. Jennifer Toney does an amazing job of walking people through that application process. So anybody stormwater who's listening, call DFA, call Jennifer, she'll help you. So we do think that larger process will help, doing a call for projects, reevaluating the proposal itself, getting that stronger signal out to the stormwater community that this is a program for them and there is funding for them. Okay, there are other things in the short term while we get to those larger term goals of that I think we can do. We're working really strongly again with DFA, and I want to thank staff again from just this point last year to where we are now. There's been a lot of discussions and a lot of communication between DFA and the stormwater community, and I think that's fantastic. And we have some other ideas of how we can continue to increase that education and information between the stormwater community and DFA, and we're very much working in partnership. I do want to note that we have an assistant executive director now, Carmel Brown, who used to work at DWR, and this was her space. So she's a wonderful person who is doing really great work and working with staff too. So just our investment of bandwidth and capacity is increasing in this area too. So our key recommendations in summary, we'd like to potentially increase future forgiveness allocations in the project acts for stormwater where the fund would allow so to do that. Adapting the application process to be more inclusive for stormwater through a call for projects and tailored instructions, and ultimately create a tailored application specific to stormwater projects. So again, thank you for your continued commitment to sustainable stormwater management and the equitable and inclusive funding programs of the principal forgiveness. So thank you.
Thank you as well for your leadership, and agree, there's just been a lot of great progress and communication and collaboration between stormwater agencies and ourselves and our financial programs, and it's been because a lot of your leadership. So really appreciate it, Ms. Cohen, and appreciate the recommendations here. I'll note, I did catch during our presentation that it sounds like the Prop 4 bond dollars for stormwater won't be routed through the intended use process. So I think that will create more of these opportunities, as you said, to have more of a tailored approach for stormwater as opposed to trying to shoehorn it a bit into some of these other programs. So thank you, and look forward to further conversation and work here. So thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Bill Zanoni, be followed by Paul Wood, then Robert White.
There we go. Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. Once again, I'm Bill Zanoni, City Manager for City of Wheatland. I wanted to thank you not only on behalf of the citizens of the City of Wheatland, but the City Council and our partners, which are here, and some of them will speak today also. For the past 5 years, at least, the City of Wheatland and the Olivehurst Public Utility District have been working on what we're now calling the Regional Wastewater Transmission and Treatment Facilities Project. That's a mouthful, but this project will result in a regional wastewater system in South Yuba County, which will connect and directly benefit 2 disadvantaged communities to provide more efficient, modernized wastewater treatment, and will protect the groundwater, which provides a municipal water source for both of these communities. Our regional wastewater project is a long-term sustainable solution that provides significant environmental and water quality benefits. Wheatland's current wastewater plant is over 60 years old. It is in very poor condition, and I think we were fortunate last week that we had a group of 8 individuals, most of them staff from the State Water Board, headed by Danya Jimerson, paid us a visit at our plant, and they also visited the Olivehurst plant. So that was very helpful for them to be able to see firsthand what we're dealing with. The estimated total cost of our project is approximately $155 million. To date, more than $20 million of local funding has been invested in this project, with significant participation by Wheatland, by Olivehurst Public Utility District, by Yuba Water Agency, and by Yuba County. So this truly is a joint collaborative effort. The planning, design, and environmental requirements for our project are complete. We've recently received railroad crossing permits and streambed crossing permits for 8 sites, which in itself is a huge accomplishment. So we are currently engaged in right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation efforts. Our council just this past week approved a $1.3 million agreement for PG&E utility relocations. So our project today is ready to go to construction. We are really ready to go. We've been working very closely with State Board staff as our project works its way through your application process. I personally check with the State Board staff on a regular basis. They have been very supportive and cordial. I think especially if I can name out names, James Garcia and Gabriel Berzamina, who continue to answer the phone when I call, and they have not yet hung up on me. We hope to have a grant agreement ready to sign within the next several months. And we plan to go to bid with the first phase of this project before the end of this calendar year, with construction starting by mid-2026. We anticipate about a 24-month construction period, which means we should have a functioning regional wastewater system in place by mid-2028. So I think with the grant funding, which we hope to receive from this board, and an approximate 50% local match, we believe this will be one of the most cooperative and beneficial approaches to a regional wastewater project in California. So we sincerely hope you will strongly consider the importance of this project to the community, the effective use of grant funding, which we believe it represents, and that you will approve the draft intended use plan. I promise you we will make you proud and we will deliver results fairly quickly. So thank you again for your consideration.
The thanks is all ours, truly, Mr. Zanoni. It's really good to see you again this year. Really appreciate the work that's gone on this last year together here jointly. The partnership means a lot. The fact that this is a regional project as well helps you out quite a bit because it's the sort of investments that the State Board are really looking for. So just thanks for the local leadership. Please provide our thanks back to the City Council. You guys have done a lot of great work. We're here just in the workshop phase. This isn't, complete congratulations to us all collectively yet, but just want to acknowledge the great progress that we continue to see here. And again, the banding together for a regional solution. When you mention your plant being 60 years old, it reminds me of so many communities here in the state as well. With the issue of aging infrastructure, so many of these investments were made, 50, 60 years ago as the Clean Water Act on the wastewater side was first adopted, and there was all that federal investment that built out, I feel, so much of what we have. So we're really at a critical moment where that infrastructure has come of age, and it's really here a matter of what are we going to build for toward the future. So thank you for that leadership and partnership at that local level. We wouldn't be able to be partners if that didn't exist there. So thank you. Board Member Morgan, please.
I just wanted to say thank you for providing the update. It's just really exciting to hear, and thanks for recognizing James and Gabriel. Bridget, please, pass that on to them for definitely keeping up that good work. And so just thank you again. It's always exciting to hear the local projects and the regionalization that's happening there. So thank you. Love to get out there sometime and just see that great work. It's been a while since I've been to those facilities, so it's always good to see them and hear about, just the work and what's happening.
You're here. Thank you, Board Member. And plus up, thanks for the acknowledgement for the staff. That means a lot. Thank you. All right. Next, I'd like to go to Paul Wood, be followed by Robert White, and be followed then by Mary Jane Griego.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the chair and the board, and especially Vice Chair Diadamo for your help. My name is Paul Wood. I'm the city manager for the city of Greenfield, California. And we're located in the Salinas Valley, home to a $4.5 billion agricultural industry. Many of the people that work out in the fields every day live in Greenfield, Soledad, King City, Salinas. We are a disadvantaged community, and we are in need of housing, golly, just like everybody else. Interestingly enough, Greenfield is one of a handful of communities in California that have met our regional housing needs assessment through Cycle 5, and we expect cycle 6 to be quickly met in the next year or two. The problem is everything's connected, right? You build housing, housing impacts infrastructure, and our wastewater treatment plant is being negatively impacted. It isn't just the new housing, though. Ours wastewater treatment plant was also built in the 50s and is 60 to 70 years old. It's at the end of life. What we're trying to do, we're at a critical situation. We've done everything from replaced headworks to reconditioning clarifiers to redoing digesters, digging out rapid infiltration basins. These are all words that I've only come to understand here in the last 3 or 4 years. And so we need something. What we've chosen is an MBR solution, or a membrane bioreactor system. It's a forward-thinking, innovative solution that's scalable. It's got a small footprint. It tends to be less expensive than traditional things, and we've got a recycled water component to it that we're looking at as, hey, hopefully the state recognizes this might be the way to go in the future. It's a proven technology, and we're the first municipality, we think, at our size to be introducing this into the system. And so we think, although our ask is big for one city, we believe that the importance of it is improving a technology that's scalable. I mean, we started this 4 years ago with a master plan implementation. We started going down the road. We talked to the state, and DFA's been in on the conversation for a long time. Obviously, the funding structures have changed over the last few years, and we've had to pivot. Well, we pivot because it's scalable. We have options as to how we do things, and that's a very, very positive thing. Also, we've spent $5 million getting the design done. We're 90%, we're ready to go. We're shovel ready as well. And hopefully we can get to a solution and construction here, within a matter of a couple of months as well. So our ask is for the board to deeply consider adopting the 25-26 IUP and considering us for financial assistance in that plan. Also would like to shout out to Bob, Mike, Bridget, Lucas, and Maureen. Hugely impactful, especially in the last couple of months as the draft has come out, and of course that kind of hit you over the head a little bit, but they've been very, very helpful. So thank you very much for that. Also to Speaker Rivas's office and Senator Laird's office, and also to you, and especially to Vice Chair Diadamo. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Mr. Wood. I really appreciate that engagement, and plus up the thanks to the Vice Chair here. Actually, Vice Chair, I don't know if you want to make any comment as well here, but just incredible appreciation for the work that's gone on here on your project, and look forward to what I know will be further discussion around it. And yeah, Vice Chair.
I don't have much to add, just really thank the community for coming together and really want to thank our staff. We had a couple of last-minute meetings that were pulled together over the last week, and I think that it was helpful for communication and a vision, a game plan, and we're all looking forward to next steps on this. It was also, I think, a good opportunity to educate the city about the really important process that's going on right now with the wastewater needs assessment, and how useful the needs assessment tool has been for us on the drinking water side. So look forward to the community's engagement in that process as well. Thank you, Chair.
You're here. No, thank you, Vice Chair. Really appreciate your leadership here on this project and engaging with folks. So thank you. Okay, next I'd like to call up the Mayor of City of Greenfield, Mr. Robert White. Thank you for joining us here this morning. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for having us. I'm Bob White, Mayor of the City of Greenfield. I want to thank you and your staff for working with us on this project, which is the Greenfield Wastewater Treatment Plant Replacement Project. In 2021, our council approved a plan to use the MBR replacement project based upon the acquisition of full funding for, as a disadvantaged community. I know things have changed, but would still love to see that happen. We now have a shovel-ready plant ready to go. Permitting is complete. We could go to bid in 60 days with our funding. So Greenfield has kept pace with the governor's housing targets, providing critical housing in the region that produces 50% of the state's leafy greens. But we are not going to be able to continue without your help. Our wastewater infrastructure is at a critical stage. Our plant is at the end of its useful life. The city is considering a building moratorium. We would hate to do that. So any funding you can give us would be truly appreciated. It help our city to continue to grow and to prosper. Thank you.
Thank you as well, Mayor. And I just do appreciate the innovative nature of the project using a membrane bioreactor. I know, I think actually Morro Bay has a membrane bioreactor. There's a few other plants out there that are also contemplating, but being at the cutting edge there, using new innovations to be able to bring down cost and be able to do more, the planning for recycling into the future is really just appreciated there. And just give a shout out to your points around the nexus ultimately between sanitation and drinking water systems and housing. You don't have communities and housing if you don't have drinking water and sanitation. Yes, energy and roads and transportation are important as well, but here really feel the criticality of these services to be able to continue to grow and have our communities prosper. So thank you. Really appreciate the leadership here. Next, I'd like to call up Mary Jane Griego, be followed by Jorge Garcia.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. I'm Mary Jane Griego. I'm a board member on the Olivers Public Utility District. I think Bill did a great job of summarizing what's been going on and on the update. But I just want to add to that discussion, and that is that this project without your partnership really stops. And so South Yuba County is very rural, agricultural. And so these types of upgrades that we would see in extending the line to Wheatland really provides a lot of benefits. One of them being the rate stabilization for our community who is challenged economically. Also, the environmental impacts that it creates as well, a positive environmental impacts. So I thank you for the recommendation. I want to thank your staff. Thank you for pulling the cushions off the couch and finding some extra money in that. And we hope that it comes true. But we do realize that there's a lot of uncertainty that's before us. And so we're going to keep our fingers crossed. We're going to pray every night and we're going to hope for the best. And then I also want to extend a welcome. When this project does move forward, we'd like to see you out there with your shovels and celebrate with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you as well. Much appreciated. What continues to feel truly we're at our generational moments here. These are investments that will last into the decades and decades ahead, not unlike, the previous 50-year investment here that brought this service to the community to begin with. So just really appreciated and glad to be partners here with you all. All right, next I'd like to call up Jorge Garcia, be followed by Alexandra Ganell and then Beth Olhasso.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. My name is Jorge Garcia, City Manager for the City of Pismo Beach. I'm here to thank you for the inclusion of the Central Coast Blue project into this year's intended use plan. The Central Coast Blue project is a local water sustainability project that will create a new, high quality and reliable water supply on the Central Coast, even in times of water shortage and drought. Recent drought impacts have highlighted the need for sustainable, drought-proof supplies. This project is also uniquely scalable and will position the entire region to eventually participate in the project if they choose to in the future. Central Coast Blue will provide an opportunity to capture reusable and otherwise lost water and use it to recharge the Santa Maria groundwater basin to create a drought-proof, sustainable water supply for the community. The technology has been proven effective as similar projects have been successful throughout California, highlighting the need for a similar undertaking in drought-prone San Luis Obispo County. Furthermore, due to a recent lawsuit, the city is anticipating up to a 30% reduction of our local source of surface water supply, Lake Lopez. This further stresses the need for a local reliable source of water in our region. I also want to thank the staff from the Division of Financial Assistance for their diligence on the project, and each one of you for meeting with us earlier this year to hear our concerns about the proposed loss of funding to the water recycling funding program. We'd like to request that you make efforts to lock these funds, these funding commitments for the water recycling funds as early as possible, regardless of the eventual outcome of the state budget and the appropriations from Prop 4 funding pots. It is important that all of the projects in the IUP have firm commitments from the state at the earliest stage possible in order to move forward confidently with final design and pre-construction planning. Again, thank you for your support of this vital project, and we hope to see the intended use plan get adopted so that we can continue working together to bring this project to life. Thank you.
Thank you as well. It's good to see you again, Mr. Garcia. Thank you. Appreciate the continued advocacy here. And it's an exciting project, truly is. Again, regional cooperation, bringing resiliency and water recycling. So it's really appreciated. Next, I'd like to call up Alexandra Ganell, and be followed by Bethel Hasso and then Debbie Mackey.
Hi, good morning,
See you.
Chair Esquivel and members of the board. I'm Alexandra Ganell. I'm the Director of Loans and Grants for the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. On behalf of the SFPC, thank you, and thanks to staff for all the work that you've done, another year's IUP, and for keeping us all engaged through this workshop. We support this year's draft, and we're in support of the comments that CASA and water reuse are going to deliver, so I'll keep my comments very brief. Thank you for inclusion of our Lower Alamany Stormwater Improvement Project on the fundable list this year. We respectfully request just a clerical correction to the score of this project. As confirmed by staff, it's a corrective project because it's on abatement order R2 2021-0021. So we hope that that can be corrected in the final version of the IUP when it's adopted. We also support staff's recommendation to restore the water recycling funding program maximum grant amount to $15 million. We think that that's going to help get those Prop 4 funds expeditiously obligated and out the door. Thank you again for the opportunity to work with you under this program. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
Great to see you again. Just really appreciate the continued partnership and engagement here, and look forward to the projects here. So thank you, Ms. Ganell.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call Bethel Hasso, be followed by Debbie Mackey and then Eric Oriana. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mr. Chair, board members. Thanks so much for having us. We were just here on the last SRF, so it's our monthly meeting, I guess. I'm here on behalf of Water Reuse California. We want to thank the board and staff for this year's IUP. As we talked about last month, the close coordination we've had with our stakeholder advisory group has really made these processes more seamless and less surprises, and we are coming together much earlier. So we just have a few comments. We are actually going to be requesting support for the scenario E, the loan scenario E, adding the town of Windsor project into this year's IUP. We understand the balance of the fund health and the caps and all and everything we need, but for several reasons we think it's important to add Windsor this year. They just last week went through and got approved. It took them 3 times to get a rate increase to help with funding the really big improvements that they're doing at their POTW there. So they are doing their part and have gone through with this rate increase. With unclear what's going to happen next year on the federal level with the capitalization grants and where our program's going to be, getting them on this year is really important. They do bring added benefits. They have a BABA waiver, so they can meet equivalency without having, they're already there. So that helps, and you could maybe ease the burden on somebody else who didn't have an equivalency waiver. So there are opportunities to kind of shuffle things around, make something easier for somebody else. So, we think, and they are already at CEQA Plus. So they are committed to moving through and off the list very quickly. They understand the need in that way. So we do respectfully request support for scenario E. Staff didn't talk because, they're going through things, trying to keep this short, but the emerging contaminants funding, we have over the past years, we haven't disagreed with moving it from clean water to drinking water, but we think with wastewater treatment projects and more water recycling projects, moving to more advanced treatment, maybe not directly to DPR, but to IPR, that are removing PFAS, and we know how much that costs. We think that we can use up that funding very quickly on the clean water side. We do know that there is some concern there might be with the federal government taking that money back. And so we all want to get it out very quickly. And so we think if we keep it over on the clean water side, we can get that money out very quickly on the PFAS side, cleaning up on the wastewater side, because we do still have recycled water that is discharged into rivers that is required. We can't use it elsewhere, here in Sacramento, down in the Inland Empire, and keeping that PFAS, if we do that extra treatment, is beneficial for many reasons that I don't need to explain. You guys understand that very well. And finally, on the water recycling funding program, we have been through this flip-flop scenario for the last few years, and we have all worked well together to handle what is coming at us with the general funds. So we appreciate the fact that the funding has been allocated in the IUP, even though we don't have those Prop 4 funds right now. We support the way that staff has supported the projects that have been part of this flip-flop for the last few years. Rest assured, I am pounding the pavement very hard over in the Capitol to try to get our 51 million back in general funds, because they have said they're giving some of that funding back. They haven't indicated which programs it's going to go to. And then also to make sure that our Prop 4 funding is allocated. So we are pushing very hard to make sure that that gets in. Hopefully it's with the June 30th budget, not later in the summer, but so we support you in that way. And then we do support the large project funding proposal. We think it was an elegant way that staff looked at being able to fund these projects in phases. I think that was clever, and we support that and look forward to figuring out how work those projects through as they come onto the IUP. So appreciate it and look forward to working with you.
Look forward to the continued work, and just thank you. Really appreciate the comments. Appreciate the flag on the emerging contaminants pot. And a feeling that there may be actual greater capacity on the clean water side. I know on the drinking water side for those, there's far more applications, I think, than we have funding. So it will be, as always, a matter of kind of prioritizing. But I appreciate the flag and know that it's just as important that we start getting it out of our system, if you will. I think of the Santa Ana River watershed, particularly where I think it's somewhat ground zero for needing to stop the creation of what is already a plume there. So just thank you. Really appreciate all those comments, Ms. Olhasso. Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Debbie Mackey, be followed by Eric Oriana and then Jared Boskel.
Okay, let me see if I can get this. There, oops, nope. Sorry, give me a second. There we go.
All right, Elise, good to see you.
There we go. Yeah, it took a little bit. Good morning, Chair Escobar and board members. I am Debbie Mackey. I'm with the Central Valley Clean Water Association. Civico represents many of the, as you know, publicly owned wastewater treatment plants in the Central Valley that provide wastewater collection, treatment, and recycling services, with our goal also to protect the environment and our members, to protect public health and the environment. I do also want to support the comments of CASA, SWRCB, Wheatland, and Olivehurst, and many of the other comments that have made today, especially just even that one made by Beth at Water Reuse concerning the emergency contaminants and the need to keep those funds still in the Clean Water SRF. We'd also really like to support the work that staff has done to engage with both the funders and with other stakeholders, including Civiqua and on working through these SRF issues. I do want to say it has made a difference. That continued engagement is important to us and our membership, and just in the communication that is out there. I too would also like to emphasize that continued importance of the Clean Water SRF low interest loan funding that's critical for infrastructure. We're really glad to see that the loan itself is getting back up to more normal levels this year. So that is exciting. But I also want to highlight some of those things that we really support within there, and that is, restoring that construction grant up to 15 million. Super important. Just overall, that small community wastewater program, which provides the grants and principal forgiveness, and as it was talked about a little bit today, some of that technical assistance, trying to look for that will be really important to those small communities, especially those in the Central Valley. As you know, we have many of them. And then also what's been mentioned today is that providing that recycling grant cap up to 15 million as using those funds created by Prop 4. So overall, just really appreciate the work that's been done, and look forward to the final comments. So thank you.
Much appreciation, Ms. Mackey. It's good to see you. Appreciate the continued engagement here, and just thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Eric Oriana, be followed by Jared Voskel, and I believe our last commenter there after will be Jasmine Diaz.
Good morning, Chairman and board members and staff. My name is Eric Oriana. I'm here on behalf of Community Water Center. Wanted to share a couple of comments in response to the draft IUP, and I thank the board and staff for this workshop opportunity. One of the things that Community Water Center focuses on is working with rural communities, and a lot of the challenges that the communities that we work with face when we go have discussions with them about drinking water long-term solutions. One of the main things on their mind is always, well, what about sewer systems? How do we connect to a sewer system? And so a lot of these communities have just not received resources from local government. And so I really wanted to call attention to leadership the board is taking when it comes to increasing the cost per connection and the eligibility criteria for septic to sewer projects. It's an environmental benefit to the communities in the Central Valley and across the state of California, but it also is just a quality of life improvement that residents really depend on, and that is just really, really needed across the state of California. So we thank the board for their leadership in expanding this criteria. I wanted to also just ground the conversation in the impact that the Clean Water SRF has on the state of California. I personally understood, and I think many residents where I come from who live in Bakersfield, California, really were heightened about the impact that a program like this can have on their quality of life. City of Bakersfield recently proposed a nearly 300% increase in the sewer rate for residents. Residents are now, people across California are being impacted by inflation and a difficult economy. And so a program like the SRF Clean Water Program provides relief and direct benefit to many residents. So thank the work that the staff is doing. And then I think just a final comment to wrap up on is there's a number of performance metrics in the Clean Water SRF intended use plan. And those metrics have been the same for about 3 years now, at least. And I was just hoping that we could see a summary of how the board has followed through on those metrics, and just for transparency and for the public to understand what those metrics are and how the board is performing. But in my experience, DFA has been very helpful, and it's been a pleasure to work with SRF staff and the Office of Sustainable Water Solutions. So I just want to say thank you, and then just wanted to see that information if possible. Those were my comments for today, but thank you for the opportunity.
Really appreciate those comments and appreciate the recommendation here to summarize some of those metrics or get some of that data out. I think that's something that we can definitely do. And just to your note, I know we spend a lot of rightful time on the drinking water side and work, but agree with you that, the sanitation side is just as important, especially as if we're working with a community on drinking water, we may as well make it comprehensive as opposed to doing 2 touch points at more cost potentially. So just really appreciate that acknowledgement and comment. So thank you, Mr. Oriana. Look forward to the further work. Next, I'd like to call up Jared Boskel. And again, our last commenter will then be Jasmine Diaz.
Good morning. Jared Voskel, Director of Regulatory Affairs for the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. I want to start by joining the chorus of thanks and recognition that's been shared here for your staff today. I know we've been here over the last year just on the scoring amendments, and that's all behind us and looking forward to what's ahead. And so we're kind of back on this perennial item with the funding. Want to align our support with Beth's comments from water reuse and also just thank her for all the work she's doing over in the Capitol pertaining to this fund. But specifically here, we are in support of Scenario E and the town of Windsor's readiness. We think it would be good for them to be considered and added and kind of for your staff to work out the rest of it. Also on the emerging contaminants, we are understanding of the priorities with how that's used, but there are opportunities to use it with clean water funding and clean water projects. I think it'd be appropriate, given where it's deriving from. But again, defer to your staff there. And then just finally, I think this is a great moment to really recognize the importance of clean water and these projects that really move like a sloth, and you get dissatisfied because you measure success by a year or if a bill passes in 6 months, and this is going to take 15 years. But what it means to the local community, it can't be understated, and it makes us all proud to do what we do. And so your staff is instrumental. They're the gatekeepers. And so not only is there success on getting these projects out the door, but really their effectiveness of a lot of the new staff coming in and building these strong relationships with all the stakeholders and the stability that provides. Really invaluable, and just want to call that out and recognize it. And so with that, we're in support of the IUP and look forward to adoption and all. Thank you.
Thank you for that recognition and for your leadership and work, Mr. Voskel. It is really appreciated, the aggregating of the input from various water agencies into kind of one voice, and it's been just a really productive and collaborative relationship, so really appreciate it. All right, now I'd like to call up our last commenter, Jasmine Diaz.
Hi, can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can. Good afternoon.
Great.
Or
Good
morning still. Good to
afternoon.
see you. Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair and board members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'll keep my comments short since I'm the last one here, but my name is Jasmine Diaz. I'm a regional field manager at the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, RCAC. We are a technical service provider that serves specifically disadvantaged communities. I manage the Septic to Sewer program, which is currently funded by DFA to provide technical assistance to DAC wastewater systems. And we perform TA from medium household and income surveys to full clean water SRF construction funding applications. I'd like to echo everyone's appreciation for the work that you do. We really appreciate our relationship with DFA and appreciate the dedication to providing technical assistance, especially to disadvantaged communities. As we all know, although there's funds available, the clean water SRF application process can be daunting for communities who don't have resources. So we really appreciate being a technical service provider that can assist them with this. The projects that we are currently serving, either from an MHI survey to a feasibility study, are the City of Arcata, the City of Chico, City of Nevada City, the Espinos Community Water District, and the San Ardo Water District. We're all basically helping them get set up so that they can eventually apply for clean water construction SRF construction funding. And then the septic to sewer projects that we're supporting through helping these communities develop full construction funding applications are the Hacienda Apartments located in Monterey County, the Bishop Paiute Tribe near the City of Bishop, Crossroad/Villa Road community by City of El Centro, Olivehurst Public Utility District, Ramona Municipal Water District, Antelope Boulevard, which is adjacent to the city of Red Bluff, and the San Lucas Water District. This one's not a septic to sewer, it's a wastewater treatment plant improvement project to address violations. And so the reason I mention all these projects is because we are also requesting additional funding so that we can continue to support these projects through DFA. And we know that funding is tight for technical service, technical assistance to be able to provide technical assistance. And so we ask that you consider a request for amendment so that we can make sure that we can complete a clean water SRF application for all of the communities that we're currently serving. Because right now we don't have enough funding to fully serve them. And the reason is it's intentional. We're doing phased approaches to determine what improvements are needed and to determine whether it makes sense to continue to fund. So, that's one of our asks is consideration of that amendment for additional funding to continue to serve the communities that we are currently serving. The other asks that we have are to consider adapting the process for a clean water SRF application to accommodate septic to sewer projects, because right now it is currently tailored to wastewater treatment improvements. And so there's a lot of additional information that is required in the application that is not necessarily helpful or necessary for describing the need for a septic to sewer project, but we still provide it because we want to make sure we provide a full clean water SRF application. So it's still provided, but we just ask to try to streamline the process a little bit for those projects if possible. And then we also would like the board to consider expanding TA to support more communities, wastewater systems in general, because I know the TA that's being provided for drinking water systems is much larger right now than it is for wastewater. So just consider expanding that. And again, just show our appreciation for the increase in the principal forgiveness cap for small DAC projects, for septic to sewer projects, and those addressing violations. That's a huge win for a lot of our communities because that can become the difference between a project and not for them. So we really appreciate the change to the IUP to address that. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you as well for yours, Ms. Diaz. I really appreciate those great comments and suggestions here. And just thank you to RCAC for being just a critical partner here in the state. The work you guys are doing is just really appreciated. And so just shout out to you and your organization, Mr. Newman and others that are there. So really appreciate the comments. Thank you. All right, that wraps up our 15 commenters and just really appreciate the great engagement here in the workshop and discussion. Looking to fellow board members if they have additional questions and comments, and also open it up to Mr. Downey, Ms. Hong, Mr. Wilson as well, if there's anything you heard that you wanted to make comment on as well. Board Member Firestone.
Thanks for all the comments. A lot of really great comments. Look forward to hearing more of staff's digestion of these comments and written comments and what comes back for adoption. And thanks again to all of the applicants that have done the really hard work of pulling together projects that are needed and just show community leadership and prioritizing these issues. And so look forward to being a partner on all of those. The only thing I just wanted to speak to is on the emerging contaminant funding. I know, Chair, you mentioned this, but just to reiterate, since I know the staggering of drinking water and wastewater, SRF is a little bit staggered. Absolutely priority at the State Water Board is leveraging any funding we can get to both drinking water and wastewater projects. And so we will do everything we can to not leave any dollar on the table. And especially emerging contaminants, there's a huge demand. So I know for drinking water, as the chair said, there's more, we'll hear more about this with the drinking water IUP, but there is more demand than supply just for the drinking water side. maybe slightly different for the severely disadvantaged community one, but I don't know that any of the wastewater projects would qualify for that. So I would just flag if there are wastewater projects that would qualify for emerging contaminant, and is it disadvantaged community or severely disadvantaged community? I can't remember.
Yeah, small or disadvantaged community.
Small or disadvantaged community. My guess is that there aren't, but if there are, please let us know as soon as possible and in your comments. But otherwise, I just, I think there's so many projects that are urgent and ready on the drinking water side that I would want to see us continue to make sure that those are able to move forward quickly this year. Although I do think we need to figure out, make sure that we do everything we can, and I know we will, to make sure no dollars left on the table for investment in these issues in California. But just appreciate everyone's work and collaboration and trying to figure out how we get these projects done. Again, we need way more funding than we have for these important projects. And so look forward to continuing to figure out how we can bring more dollars into this sector and line of work and critical needs for our communities. Thanks.
You're here. Thank you, Board Member. Board Member Morgan.
And thank you. Just again, want to thank staff and really thank you all for this year. The last few years, we've been hearing both the clean water and the drinking water IUP together in the workshop, and this year really having them separated. And for me, I feel it was beneficial. We were really able to dig into the sanitation needs and really hear those comments in just separately, and better understand what our needs here. While we still have not completed our wastewater needs assessment, I think that's going to give us a better idea of what those needs are out there. I think just as we have learned from the drinking water needs assessment, there's a lot more that's out there than what we know, because it came through, which is even within the comments of, if the funding's not there, many times, many will not even apply. So we only know what has been applied for. Just as, there was a slide that was highlighted of the additional small community wastewater projects while they're shown as incomplete in our system, some of those are complete. It's just that we did not have the funding. And so we had not had those as a priority for staff to work on. But just bringing them forward and showing that they are there. And, staff are now spending the time to go back and make phone calls to say, hey, do you want to move forward with this project? And to me, that it's a really interesting question, because we're talking about sanitation, we're talking about wastewater. These are critical projects, and they're impacting, these have a great impact to quality of life, to the environment, and to drinking water sources. So, to me, that's an interesting question of, do you want to move forward versus have you already moved forward? Is there a way that we can assist you in moving forward with these critical projects? And really making sure that we are looking at where the projects are, and are they having an impact on our drinking water sources, on our, on our environment in a way. Our mission is to, preserve, to protect, and to restore our waters of the state. And if we have a failing sanitation system, it is degrading our waters of the state. And so, for one, this program is critical. So I am thrilled that we've had this isolated conversation. We're really able to dig in, and then we're doing a wastewater needs assessment so we can better understand the greater needs. I heard Ms. Jimerson got out and with her group, and I know she's working on the wastewater needs assessment to really take a look at, one project that is going on in the state. I know they've been touring the state, they've been taking a look at projects and seeing what is out there and really getting a handle on, these are the smaller projects that are out there. And so a lot of times they go unknown. And so we really need to have that understanding and to be able to really roll that into what the greater needs are, so that we can better allocate our funding and understand where that funding needs to be allocated and what the resources there are. And, just want to make sure that I want to, thank Ms. Hong, who manages the loan component of the Clean Water SRF. And, we refer to this as Clean Water SRF attendant use plan, which is what it is. It goes to be approved. And then Ms. Chase, who is in the audience, she's within the Office of Sustainable Water Solutions, who manages the small community. And so the septic to sewer program, the grants and the principal forgiveness. And so, that's also a very large portion of the work that we have been speaking to. And so while she's not up here on the panel, she, a lot of the work that we have been speaking to and the staff that have come up are with Ms. Chase and within her programs. And so I just also want to make sure that she did come up for a brief moment, but want to make sure that we, acknowledge all the great work in both of those critical sections of the plan that we are speaking to. And a lot of great work that is occurring, and a lot more to come. And I'm really looking forward to the future years where we can continue to really dig into what the critical needs are within our state and continue to work with Division of Water Quality and the wastewater needs assessment. And so thank you.
Thank you, board member. Really appreciate your leadership and advocacy here in the sanitation and wastewater side. It's really appreciated. And to your point, it is an exciting moment here as we embark on the wastewater needs assessment, or well into it actually, and continue to do work around it, because it has given us such benefits on the drinking water side. And it is a critical moment. I think the public, you see, you look at the 50-year arc of where we are on access to sanitation, and it's easy to take for granted what we have right now, let alone the communities we know that we still need to access. So it is a really important time right now where we wanting to ensure that we don't slide back, that we continue to expand access. And again, it's a space that doesn't often get as much attention. And so I agree, board member, it was great to have today to be able to just focus in on the clean water side, the sanitation side, and just appreciate everyone's incredible contributions. This is a workshop, so not at a decision point, but look forward to making that future decision here soon. Now well-informed, thanks to all of your continued engagement. So many thanks, much appreciation. Just glancing at the vice chair, I know it's hard when you're remote sometimes, just to see if you had any comment further. Okay, great. Thank you, vice chair. Thank you all again. Really appreciate the work that's gone on here. Look forward to moving on to adoption. So much appreciation. Thanks everyone for your consideration and participation. That wraps item number 6, our board workshop on the Clean Water SRF. Now brings us into our last item, which is informational item and board member reports. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. All right, as we transition here to our last item, is there a board member that is prepared to give reports? I'm going to pull up my calendar.
I can start off. I'll just mention that a week ago on June 10th, I had the honor of joining staff from Division of Water Quality and some from the regional boards, and at a just a gathering to really just talk about inland waters and nutrients, and want to thank 2 of my regions really for reaching out to Division of Water Quality. So that's Region 5, the Central Valley region, and then also San Diego Region 9 for just reaching out and saying, hey, can we come together and we just bring us everyone together and just have a great discussion. So it was just really, it was nice to see staff from the state board and all the regions just come together to have a good discussion and just really educational, just to get everyone, I say on the same page, but more of just bring the educational level to the same place. So it was good for me to just, as can be a little nerdy and geeky and ask 1,000,001 questions, be able to sit there and also gain that education so that when I am asking questions, hopefully they're more intelligent and they're better framed so that staff can actually know what question is that I'm answering and what is the information that I am seeking so that I can get the information that I am looking for as a board member and not spend a lot of staff's time trying to frame a question that they have no clue what I'm asking. So I am grateful for just being able to be a fly on the wall and gain that additional education.
Fantastic. Thank you for attending that, board member. And I feel the same way oftentimes. So thank you. Quickly on, June 5th, I was in West Goshen. Really appreciate the invitation to celebrate a consolidation project there with Cal Water. The community has been struggling with drinking water issues for a while. The state board funded technical assistance work that started the community on a path, and really appreciate that the Department of Water Resources was able to come in and fund a significant component of that project and get folks connected. It was exciting to be able to just be there, to be able to celebrate with folks and have some good discussion and be there with our partners at Department of Water Resources. Last week, then, I virtually attended the Western States Water Council convening. It was actually the 60th anniversary of the Western States Water Council, and we're transitioning out of an executive director. So an important time there to be able to continue to connect with our Western States colleagues. And then just want to give a shout out. This last Sunday was the Pride Parade here in Sacramento. I was very fortunate to have been able to march these last years with our staff. I was not able to. I was out of town this weekend, unfortunately, but it was the largest showing yet, and just really appreciate the support out there, both from the Resources Agency and Cal EPA and all the leadership, and importantly, folks in our programs, the staff that are the ones pulling together these events. And it's really a critical time for community. And so shout out to the leadership of the affinity groups here, many of folks here from the State Water Board, and including Michael Chan. Want to give a shout out to Amy Cronson as well, and others. So just many thanks. And then just yesterday, I was in Los Angeles. I attended the LA County Water Summit convening. Really want to thank Supervisor Horvath for her leadership. Certainly wildfire and the impacts to the drinking water systems was front of mind. But it was good to be able to talk comprehensively about the great work that is being done in LA County to plan for the future here, whether it's on the stormwater side, water recycling, and of course the continued needs of drinking water systems and sanitation systems as well. So glad to have been participated in that yesterday with Secretary Crowfoot, Chair Adan Ortega, of the Metropolitan Water District. And unfortunately, Regional Administrator Cook was not able to make it, but it was a good panel and a good opportunity to connect across all the work. That's all I have for mine.
So I, on June 4th, was able to participate in a groundbreaking for Placer County Water Agency and City of Colfax regional consolidation project along the I-80 corridor, and celebrate. I mean, there was already a project that was where pipe was being laid in the ground for connecting communities all up and down the I-80 corridor. There's an additional project to connect a mobile home park across the street, I think Shady Glen. And I think it's the first incentive project that's actually gotten over the finish line, or not the finish line yet, but is moving forward. I know there's more to come, but for providing incentives for voluntary consolidations and especially regionalizations for disadvantaged communities, really a model of what we want to see around the state. And it was a pleasure to see projects moving forward. And it was the same day, or at least back to back with West Goshen. And I think there's a whole slate, and I think a lot of momentum of projects that are finally moving forward after a lot of time and investment, and it's really exciting to see.
Here, incredibly exciting. Yeah, and definitely feel that momentum. The invitations keep coming in at this point, so the years of technical assistance work and the creation of these pipelines is really paying off, and so it's exciting to do our small part and attend those as well. Here all amongst it. So thank you everyone for the continued invitations. It means a lot. All right. Apologies, Vice Chair. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I just have one to report. On June 5th, I was the keynote speaker for the Modesto Chamber of Commerce's kickoff for their summer series. I think we're all aware of the arch when you drive into Modesto: water, wealth, contentment, health. And so that's the focus of the summer series. I spoke about water, and the next session will be on wealth, etc. And I used it as an opportunity to give an update on climate change and changing hydrologic conditions, the water resilience portfolio, the water supply strategy, and just looking at, the comprehensive things that we all need to be doing as a state. I think that the comments were well taken. Of course, they had questions about the update of the Bay Delta Plan, and so I was able to provide just a little bit of information there on schedule. A good discussion.
That's great. Thank you so much, Vice Chair, for being there and speaking to, again, the issues and the work at the board here. It's really appreciated. Okay. We don't have an executive director's report at this meeting, so that wraps up our items here at this board meeting. We will go into closed session though, so we will not adjourn yet. We will go into closed session on Delta Conveyance Project and sites, and why don't we, if I say 1 o'clock, it's less than an hour we have for lunch, but let's say 1:15, and we can give ourselves an actual hour. So we'll convene in closed session starting at 1:15. Our next board meeting will not be actually until July 15th. So the first board meeting of the July, we'll go ahead and give folks a break. That will be canceled. And so our next notice board meeting again will be July 15th and 16th. So it feels like a lot can possibly happen between then and there. So hopefully everyone just stay safe, be well, have a good summer, or at least summer months here, and we'll see you all here in mid-July. Mr. Loffer, anything further I should make sure and mention before?
Just for the board members' benefit, we will be meeting in 2510 for the closed session today.
Okay. Our favorite room. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And we'll see everyone, or we'll be in closed session at 1:15. We'll see everyone at the next board meeting. Thank